And I heard another voice from heaven, saying, Come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached into heaven, and Elohim hath remembered her plagues.
Anything towards anybody, but when I get videos through Messenger or whatever, a lot of times I don't have time to sit and watch every single one, so a lot of them get pushed aside. But for some reason, something told me, watch this one. So I sat there and I watched it, and it was interesting, so I went on and watched a few more of his. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me try this for myself. And I tried it, and it went through, and then I waited about a day, and then I posted results. And everybody was like, well, why are you just now posting them? It says that it went through yesterday. I said, because I, for one, do not post anything unless it has results, and I've tried it myself first. I said, if I get in trouble, it's whatever. I said, my record's clean other than what happened here in New Mexico. I said, so overall, if something happens to me, it happens to me. I don't want to sit there, put something out there, and get hundreds and thousands of people in trouble for something I put out there. But, yeah, it's been cleared since the 28th and hasn't been reversed yet.
What was it that you did?
I used my Social Security number as the accounting number. And then on the back of your Social Security card, there is a red number at the bottom that also has a red letter in front of those numbers. You take that red letter, and there's a chart that I've been passing around through all my posts on regards to this, where you look for your bank that's associated with that card. And then you take the routing number from that bank and put it in as the routing number without dashes. And it took it. It's been cleared.
I'm curious. Now, obviously, you just did this recently, so it doesn't apply to you per se, but I'd be curious to find out what is the longest length or duration of time between someone having done it and now. The reason that I ask it that way is because the IRS has a policy, and I'm not suggesting that anybody actually give a damn about a policy, but I'm only mentioning it because it governs their actions. And so their policy is they can wait 9 months after the preceding year's tax year is finalized. So in other words, we're in July now, so our last year would be the 06 fiscal year. So in September of this year, we could say something that was finalized and done with in the 2016 year could finally be addressed, and then give it however many weeks it takes for something to become published after they've arrested someone. So the question ultimately being, what is it that is the longest time between this being done and now? Obviously, you just did it, so it doesn't apply to you per se, but do we know of anybody that maybe did this 2 years ago or 3 years ago?
Can I interject?
Well, if I may, I researched this stuff several years ago, and I found people 15 years ago that were doing it.
And who have also, not just that you saw doing it then, but since then you've followed through with them and found no one's been in trouble with this?
Nobody's gone to jail for it or anything like that. I've never seen anything like that. But what I was seeing is that some of them were having them reversed in 3 days. A lot of them were having them reversed 10, 15 days.
Could I interrupt here for a moment, please? Because I got some information on this.
Excellent.
Sure.
Eugene Ledford did this like 5 years ago, and he got maybe a year. I can't remember if he got a year in prison or a year or two probation for doing this. There's been a number of people that have done this and went to prison or got threatened with it. So you guys are just forgetting about this.
Yeah. I have to interject.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Well, see, I didn't sit here and do it to do all my bills. That was not my intention. My intention was not to just sit here and get away with not paying bills. That was not the intention. I did one bill, and that was it.
Here's how they
others
get you
are
on
doing 2, 3, 4 of them. I'm not.
Hey,
I did one.
Here's how they get you on this. Here's how they get you on doing that process, okay? And if you'll notice, that guy keeps saying he don't give a damn, he don't give a damn. He, you know, it's like he's misleading people, because here's the way the government comes back. They say, wait a minute, you're a U.S. citizen. You're not authorized to use that like that. You're not a bank. You can't enter those routing numbers and do that. That's the way they play it, okay? So you guys can try this, but they're going to get you for that, because you're not a bank, and you don't have authorization to enter those banking codes, okay?
Can I
Actually, it's your Social Security number.
It may be, but you're not a bank. You don't get to do the banking.
That's what a UCC's for, and I am on a UCC.
Don't do nothing. All a UCC is, you guys need to remember, what is a UCC? All it is somebody is a witness to what you're doing. There's no power to it. It's just a witness to what you've done. See, what the UCC originally was set up to is like, if I sell a neighbor 10 cows, okay, it shows he owes me for the 10 cows. It doesn't mean that there's no power of saying you own the cows because of doing a UCC. You got to have a contract in place to own something. All it is a witness,
a notice
to the world. Like how
do we mute?
Not even got the power of a newspaper article. Okay, a newspaper, when you run the legal section, has power. You give somebody notice 30 days if they don't respond, blah blah blah. Okay, UCC doesn't. There's been loads of people that have done UCCs. I have. I haven't found anybody yet that's had success with a UCC. Now, you guys can try all this knucklehead stuff if you want to, but you got to remember, the system don't want you to be successful. Even though some people may fall through the cracks, if they find out, they love to have a reason to send you to prison, because all they got to do is say, wait a minute. They know that they're not a bank, and they're trying to steal from the government. That's all they have to do, and the local people will say, yeah, right, you got to pay taxes, you got to pay your stuff. You don't get nothing for free. And so they've got the public on their side right now.
Well, like I said, I wasn't doing it to pay a bill or anything of the sort. I did it merely so I could show everybody that, yes, there is an account that exists. That was it. I didn't tell anybody to go and do the same exact thing I did. I didn't tell anybody to go watch these videos. I didn't tell anybody to do anything. I merely stated numerous times on numerous ones of my posts that I did this to show everyone there is an account that exists with your Social Security number. That was all I was proving.
Yep, and next thing that's going to be proven is that they're going to come and put those people in prison, okay? They don't want us to have, anything that helps us. I'm just telling you, the system is set up purposely to steal from us. It's not set up to help us in any way. And if you get help and they find out about it, they're going to come after you. That's just the system. The only thing I can suggest to everybody is you better get your status right, that you're not at least a U.S. citizen. You got to at least kill that.
Yep.
Because a U.S. citizen only has rights, and rights are nothing.
Yes, thank you. Speak? Hang on just a second, Dixie. And that is what this call is about, exiting Babylon and correcting your status. You have a lot more standing, or you have standing, once you correct your status. And we're going with that, okay?
Yeah,
so
that's the difference in the world right there. Go ahead.
Law. Right, that's been based on the study of law. That's on a lot of testing, and we brought Bryan Parker on tonight to share many things with us. He's shared with us before on exiting Babylon twice now, I think. And he has extremely valuable information. We've been mulling a lot of this over. And so that's one of the reasons why the moderator is going to be very careful about who calls in on the call and participates. So if you're calling from an anonymous number, unblock your number or announce who you are, or you risk the chance of being cut off the call. We feel that the information is private. It's about moving into the private and out of the public. And so that's what we're learning together. And
hey, dear, I'm gonna start the recording on my end here as well. All right?
Sure, that'd be great.
How do we mute and unmute?
3.
And yes, another thing is, please do mute yourself while the guest speaker is speaking, and wait until the questions and answers section. I know we got off on a tangent here in the beginning, but the call is already scheduled, and so we can go on a rant, at another time here, maybe later on. I would like to bring Bryan Parker on, though, who is already on the call and has been waiting to come on. And Bryan has done an incredible amount of solutions building, is what I look at it as. And he's a very lawful, knowledgeable people to bring this information forward. And pardon me while I'm being sidetracked by traffic going up and down my private drive.
While you're doing... Just a second. Let me start the recording here on this end and do a quick intro and turn it back to you. Is that all right?
Talk shoes. Recorded live.
Thanks, guys, here at Tactical Sovereignty, the Matrix Discussion Group. We delayed the call from Sunday over to Monday so we could join the Colorado group. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to the Colorado group.
Thanks, Bryan. Actually, this isn't really the Colorado group. We have people from Colorado on the call, but I believe that you can anticipate there'll be people on the call from all over, Florida, and I wouldn't even know where else. But it's a call that's open to everyone. Just unmute your number is all we ask, and be polite. Don't interrupt our host or speaker for the call until we open Q&A. And so with that, Bryan Parker has been involved in figuring many, many things out, including correcting your status. And he has a lot of valuable information to share with us based on tried and true testing, as well as deep studies into knowledge. And he is an ordained minister, brings great wealth of knowledge to the table. And so many people should hear everything that you have to say, Bryan. I'd like to open up the floor to you, and there you go.
Well, your call is entitled Exiting Babylon. And, I think I always like to go to the very beginning of a situation or a problem to find out where the solution is at, because that's the only place you're going to find it. Find out how it got constructed, who put it together, how it was put together. That way you can figure out how to unwrap that package, essentially. And, people really need to get in it, and they need to comprehend what Babylon is. One of the things that kind of grinds my gears a little bit, you could say, is that people read Scripture and they're like, oh, well, Yeshua was speaking figuratively, or this situation, that was figurative, or this is a parable, or whatever. And then they get into the book of Revelation and they want to say, oh, no, this is exactly the way it's going to happen. And so everybody's looking for these physical signs. But probably the most notable sign everybody's always talking about, and they've looked for years, has been the mark of the beast. The UPC chip came along, and people said, or the code, and people said it was UPC code, And then people said, oh, they're going to put chips in our bodies, or they're going to go and they're going to put chips. It's those chips that are in our cards now, your debit card or whatever. That's the mark of the beast. And people really get into Scripture, get back to the original Greek and Hebrew, depending on what you're reading, and learn what those words really were and what they were talking about. Everything starts to make sense. I've said before that when I started looking into all of this information and going on this journey, that, I really expected to run into a lot of just atheists and people haters and things like that, and deity haters. And I found that couldn't have been further from the truth. I found a lot of very, very spiritual-minded people. And when I say spiritual-minded, I'm not talking religious-minded. Religion is a man-made construct. It was made to control the people. There's two things, really, that will control. I'll just use a man, for instance. Two things that will really control a man is their fear of government or, their fear of their God. And so what governments have done is they've tried to couple the two together. And it's really called statism. And that's what's been used to control everybody. And so much of what exists within the corporate system directly parallels Scripture. We were told that Satan was the great deceiver, he was the great imitator. And, the great imitator is really spot on, because in that 1,000 years of thought, you see the statue of the guy with his chin on his hand, that 1,000 years of thought, after he was kicked out of heaven, he was like, he was going to be greater than God. One way or another, he was going to be greater than God. He just had to figure out how to do it. And the only thing that really made sense to him was that he could never really be greater than God. The only thing he could do is be the exact opposite of God and mimic him. And that's exactly what's happened. And that's what's happened with the way the states are set up, the way the legislative system is set up, the way policy is set up. It's the way courts are set up. If you go back and look at the design of the tabernacle, and I'm talking the tabernacle that Israelites were carrying through the wilderness, you want to look at that and really look at a diagram of it and stop and think and see what it reminds you of. When you went in, there's the area for the people, and then there's the altar for burning your offering, and then you had the judge there on the other side. That's what you see in courts. There's just the judge, but there it was the priest, and the priest could enter into the Holy of Holies. There's the altar of incense there, and the candlesticks. And one of the things that I find very interesting, though, is that you look at that altar for the burnt offering, and then you go and you look inside of where they had the Holy of Holies, the showbread, and all of that, and both of those altars were the same size. I think they were both 15 centimeters up off the floor. So what you really had was that, the remedy and your payment were on equal levels. One was no greater than the other. Unfortunately, what this system has done is totally reversed that. And they've assumed the role of that priest. In England, they call it
Hang
silk.
on, Brian. You might be fading out. Brian, if you can speak into your phone a little bit more.
All right.
I don't know. I'm only using Skype, and actually it's been pretty good, but I know my sound quality is not great. So I don't know if everybody else is, or if it's just my
That's a strong possibility. Let me see if I can adjust volume on this end.
Okay.
But
thank you.
And one of the things, too, that people like to look at with paperwork they're doing and different things is they look at different colors that they're using. Well, when you entered into that tabernacle, there was a linen gate there, and it was a fabric gate, and it was colored blue, it was colored purple, white, and red. The blue was for obedience, And you look at that today, we look at blue as being like a corporate color, and purple was for royalty, the white was righteousness, and the red was for sacrifice. And, when you combine the red and the blue, the obedience and the sacrifice, that's what brings you to royalty, which is what we are. That's who we're supposed to be. That's the way we're supposed to be walking. But in order to do that, we have to combine things. We have to combine our obedience with the sacrifice. And the sacrifice is the giving up of self. Like I had said earlier, one of the things I saw was that there were so many spiritual-minded people. Because if you're studying lawful stuff and you're studying the world's legal stuff, you're really going to find that it's going to bring you right back to spiritual standards. And if you don't combine the two, you're not going to see it for what it is. Unfortunately, the way they have it set up is that this is the religion. Government is the religion. And, it drives me crazy. You see people will fight and kill. You look at Islam and what's happened over there with those people for many, many centuries, and they will fight and kill for their religion. And here in America, for years now, we've been going around, well, not we, but the company's been going around murdering people across the world, across this land, for their religion, for their government, for what they want to try and pawn off as being democracy. So when we look at things from that standpoint, it will really start to make a little bit more sense. But what drives me crazy, though, is that here in America, we don't have the dedication that people like in the Middle East do, or some of the groups in the Middle East do. But they're born with it. It's drilled into their head from the time that they're children that, the non-Jew is bad, or the other side's bad, our side's the only right side. But it's drilled into them so strongly that they'll even kill for it. And here in America, nobody has gripped on to anything. The only thing people have really gripped onto in that way would be sports. You see the fights that go on at hockey games. You see the fights that go on at football games. You even see it in Europe, over different soccer games. These people hold so strong to their dedication to their team, but where is the dedication to the Creator? And we've been sidetracked and led to pay attention to those things, because as long as we're paying attention to those things, then this true religion of statism can do whatever they want to us, and they are doing whatever they want to us, because people haven't been dedicated. One of the main things as well, even the people that think they are dedicated to the Creator, is something else that was substituted and put in front of us, which is what I said earlier, that man-made religion. So many people I grew up going to church every Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday. I went to a non-denominational Christian school my entire life, never spent 1 minute into a public school. The main reason was because my father had been a public school principal. My mom had been a teacher in a public school, and they both said, no, our kids are not going into the public school indoctrination system. And you look at the religion that was given to us, and even the way the religion is structured, it's structured the same way as the state is. You've got your pastor, you've got your head, whoever there. And then you've got the deacons, deacons that are maybe elected from amongst the congregation as representatives, and you could look at that as your House of Representatives in a way. The church has its secretary. Everything has been set up under the corporate structure and the corporate model. And you even look at the churches themselves. It's got that steeple on top of it. What do you think that steeple is for? And that steeple is that old Egyptian phallic symbol. It's that statue that we see in all the big city-states. You see it at the Vatican, the obelisk in the City of London. We've got the Washington Monument, the obelisk there in Washington, D.C. So the old tenets of the original man-made paganism has infiltrated into our churches. It's infiltrated into the state governments, the federal government, and we're all following Babylon that we should be exiting. Babel was the gate of the gods. That's what Bab is. Bab is gate, and El is God. It's the gate of the God. It is their way of trying to get to God, or maybe even actually in Nebuchadnezzar's or Belshazzar's situation was to become greater than God. And their chief god in Babylon at that time was Marduk. All right, well, what do we see happening in Bohemian Grove? They're giving a sacrifice of care to Marduk. I mean, we're still seeing all these same things passed on. And once we identify that, we realize who the enemy is, now you know what you're fighting, and you know what it really takes to go and separate from it. Because so many times people try and separate from it, but they're using the same tools that system created. The churches felt like, they needed to be separate from the state, had to have separation of church and state, which there is no such thing. They were both the same thing. And so they were offered the 501c3 status under Nixon, I believe it was. Well, they're tied into what the state wants. They're held to the principles of the state. And that's why you'll hear some truths in some of these churches, but you're never going to hear the entire truth because they can't give you the entire truth because they're afraid of losing that 501c3 status, that they don't realize that both they had and we have, even given just right in the First Amendment to the Constitution. It lays it out right there for us as to how to be separate from the state. But for some reason, man doesn't think that that's good enough. They needed something stronger. I don't know what else you would need that's stronger. To me, it doesn't become any bigger than that. If it wasn't that strong, it wouldn't have been the First Amendment. They would have had it buried down the line somewhere. But they started right out with the very first thing, that the state or the Congress shall not respect any religion or establishment of religion. They laid it right out there, the very first thing. So that should be everybody's first clue as to what they need to do. You have to show that you've chosen sides, because if you don't choose sides, then a side's going to be chosen for you. A side is going to be presumed for you. And the state is going to presume that you're on their side, that you're their chattel property, and they can do whatever they want with you. So the first thing that really needs to be done is just correcting that presumption. You got to let them know who you're following. You got a bunch of players that run out on the football field. They all don't wear the same uniform, do they? No. They distinguish themselves as to whose side they're on. That's something that the American people have not done. They have not established whose side they're on, whose side they're playing for, and what God they're listening to. Because this was supposed to have been established as one nation under God, and I challenge anybody to go to Washington, D.C. and look around. Anytime a nation sets up, their headquarters or their capital or builds their temples, you're going to see their statues and paintings and artwork of their God. Okay? So we're one nation under God. Like I said, I challenge you. Go to Washington, D.C. and look around. See if you can find that God that the United States is supposed to be under. The house that's under Persephone, she sits up on the roof. And she's not even lit up at night. They don't even light up that statue because it's supposed to be in darkness. Nobody is supposed to know. And this was all established in Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia. Well, a district is something that is a piece of something greater. But something greater is Columbia. Who is Columbia? Columbia was a goddess of war, of division, of bloodshed, of conquering. Those are the gods that this nation was set up under. If you even look at the word that's used on the bills or anything, you're going to see that all three of those letters are all capitalized. We see the same thing even in Scripture with the word Lord used. L-O-R-D are all capitalized. They might have them in a smaller font, but it's the capitalization style. And so that you're looking at not a translation or a transliteration, but you're looking at a substitution. And so that word God that they use is a substitution. You'll find out, okay, what God are we supposed to be under? And knowing that this nation was primarily set up by Masons, I encourage everybody to look into Masonry. Look and see who their gods are. Look and see who they believe that they were following. Because it's not the God of creation as we've been taught. Now, the Masons will tell you they follow Lucifer, period. To them, Lucifer is Jesus Christ, Lucifer is God, Lucifer is the Creator. And Lucifer is symbolized in so much of the artwork and the statues that they put up, showing the God that they're following. So like I said, step one for people, you have to identify essentially what flag you're flying under. You have to identify who your God is, who you are sovereign under. There's only one true sovereign, which is God. We're sovereign because we're made in His likeness. But we're still underneath another power. And until we correct the presumption, the state is going to assume and presume that that power that we're under is them. And I guess I'll stop there. If there's anything you wanted to say, dear.
I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor. Does anybody have any questions for Bryan? That was excellent, Bryan. Really excellent. If anybody has any questions, Marshall Schubert, if you could tell me if anybody's in queue with the star 6, that would be great. Thank you. Okay, I'll just open up the floor. Anybody have questions for Bryan or comments?
I have a question, if I may.
Please, go ahead.
There was a young lady talking this before in the beginning of the conversation tonight. She was talking about the Social Security number. And I don't actually know what had transpired regarding her making a claim. I don't know what the incident was about, and I'm sorry to have to go back to that so early in the conversation, but I was wondering if she can expand upon that a little bit.
If I can gloss over that really quickly, because there's another aspect to that. What it's looking at, it's something that's been worked on for a number of years, and I guess one of the callers said that they've known of people that have gone to prison or jail over this, which really wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I haven't seen that myself, but it wouldn't surprise me if that's happened. But that is taking that letter off the back of the Social Security card, finding routing number for one of the Federal Reserve banks here in America that go with it. Just like those numbers you see on the bottom of a personal check, you get the routing number and the account number. Well,
right.
You do this through an ACH payment, and you use the routing number and then use the Social Security number as the account number. The old Social Security cards, actually, it used to say account number above the number. But I think that was when people were starting to try and do this, and so they went and they took that off because people were going, wait a minute, account? Like bank account? You know what I mean? And people I looked at from years ago, a lot of them were getting them, having a reversal done on them like 10, 15 days later. Even though when you do the payment, the ACH payment, it goes through faster than even paying your cell phone bill online. I mean, it's an immediate acceptance. So it is great, excellent proof that there is an account there. And a lot of this aspect of it, and, you know, one of the callers will say, well, you're not set up as a bank. Well, that's true. You're not set up as a bank. And I've had a few friends that have actually gone through the DTC and set themselves up as a financial institution. I don't know if that would play into this or not, just because it's not really something I've really messed around with. But this really all falls under the Gold Repeal Act or Public Law 7310, HCI 192, whatever you want to call it. And because of that, really, the U.S. government should be taking care of its chattel property. If it's looking at the people on the land as being their chattel property, well, every farmer needs to feed the cattle. Every farmer needs to put a roof over the cattle's head, you know, and that's really what's supposed to be going on and what this method should probably really be used for. One of the guys on YouTube right now, he's calling himself a trust fund baby and stuff. You know, he's going out and looking at cars and houses and this or that. Hey, well, I'm sorry. That greed aspect that so many people still have inside of them, because, you know, when it comes to changing your status, you're not just giving notice to the state or the feds as to who you are and who you serve, but it's also a change that has to happen inside. And when that change happens inside, that greed aspect disappears as well. And when that disappears, then you only really be concerned about really just your needs and not your wants. You learn the difference between the two.
If I may, I'm the one who asked that question, and my concern is this. I have been put in a position of suffocation because of child support, okay? And because the court is so vicious towards men, okay, I was paying $14.65 a month child support to somebody who was living on a 10-acre ranch with 6 horses, 4 cars, and married to somebody else. And I could not, and basically I'm almost homeless now. And I'm looking for a way to either pay off this debt, supposed debt, and get on with my life. I've lost everything I have, okay? And I was a... go ahead.
Well, who is that?
Say again, sir?
That's actually what I wanted you to do, is say your name.
Oh, my name is Dominic.
Okay, Dominic. If the host can have Dominic have a offline with this number afterward, is that possible?
Well, you know what? I wasn't going to go into great detail anyway, but I will tell you the resource where you can find the information you need, Dominic. And that is, go to my YouTube channel, Bryan Parker, Tactical Sovereignty. I've got a bunch of playlists there. You're going to find a playlist that's entitled Support, Summons, and Documents. Okay? There's a gentleman on the beginning of that playlist, and follow some of his links, and he tells you how he took care of child support.
Okay. This is critically important to me because I've been fighting the system for over 10 years, and I'm extremely exhausted, as you well can imagine. I wrote more documents than I care to think about that went nowhere, and I really need some help. And I wouldn't be calling if I didn't, you know. And if you don't mind telling me again, I'm making notes here. What was that web YouTube video? I'm sorry.
You're gonna go.
Do you have a phone number that I can call you at?
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, give it out over here. I'll just play it one more time. Go to YouTube and look up Bryan Parker, Bryan Parker on YouTube, and I've got a playlist on there called Support, Summons, and Documents. And because there are links for documents there and stuff. And go to the gentleman, I can't remember his name now, but go to his YouTube and then follow his little rabbit trail for his documents and everything like that, and he shows you how to do it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll have probably time in the after call. So if there's more that you want to ask and whatnot, we can probably get into that.
Yeah, in the after call, we can go over more details later. I'd like to offer it in addition to that.
I also, if I may, just one more thing. These people have kidnapped my child from me, and I haven't seen my little boy in 10 years. And, of course, I miss him every day. And I'm trying to get back with my son, and I call him once a week, and, he's always asking me these questions, and he's getting older now. He's going to be 11 in September, and I like to be his daddy. We've been so close before, and all of a sudden, they were snatched from me, and I was a rocket engineer and making big money to almost to where I'm homeless now and don't even have a place for him to go, because of all the fraud that was inflicted upon me to save my job. And now I can't even work anymore. So I really need help,
May I?
I hear you.
May
I hear you. And we got a lot of hurting people all over.
Boy, I'm telling you. God bless you. Thank you very much.
May I?
Sure.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead, please.
Could I ask for Dominic's number? This is Santa Claus in Cincinnati.
Yeah, Santa Claus, you know me, 714.
Hold on. Yeah.
747-4477.
Where are you at?
I'm in San Diego, California.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. 714-747-4477.
Uh-huh.
Okay, Dominic. What's a good
I've
time?
been on many calls with you, Santa Claus, and this situation is out of control, and they're trying to get me in jail, and I'm trying to avoid all that.
Yeah, I don't blame you. You know Gary Don, right?
Yes, I do. We're good friends, Gary and I.
Yeah, that's okay. All right, I yield. What's a good time to call you, Dominic?
Well, you can call me tomorrow morning anytime.
Okay. I'm in Cincinnati, so it's 10 o'clock right now. And for you, it's 7, right?
Where I'm at, yeah, currently I believe it's around 7, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I yield. Thank you, Dominic.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Anybody out there have questions for Bryan regarding exiting Babylon or?
May I?
Go ahead.
Yes, James in South Carolina. My question is that, are we seeing any results from knowing how to exit Babylon? Anybody know that there's free people, so to speak, walking around? They've, migrated to the, other side, and there's hundreds and hundreds that have done this and just haven't heard about it, or, I hear all these things. I've been on these calls for a long time now, 6 months, and I'm just wondering if any of this stuff really works. I yield.
Well, I can give you my most recent experience, and it's also kind of a twofold answer. You know, what's happening right now, and it's gone on for a long time, is, you know, you kind of look at a set of railroad tracks, and that's what we have. We've got two systems running parallel with each other. However, people don't realize that fact. They really only see the one system. They don't, and they think that that system is the republic that we originally are under, and it was originally created for this nation. And then they start running into problems, and they start looking at the Constitution, Bill of Rights, and go, wait a minute, they're not following any of this stuff. What's going on? You know, and that's because the whole system has been usurped. Everything really is set up underneath a whole bunch of private membership associations, right down to the driver's license. You join the Department of Motor Vehicles, and what you've done is you've joined a private membership association, and they have their own rules and laws and things that you have to do. And, you know, you have to have registration done every year. You got to renew your driver's license every so often. However, it's not your driver's license because they can take it away. If they can take it away from you, it must not be yours, right? So what you've done is you've traded those rights that you originally had for their set of rules. All right, and so in a situation like that, that's something that has to be undone at that point. As far as like my most recent experience here a couple months ago, I had sent, because you have to look at where is the doorway? Where is the doorway to this whole situation as far as the state or the federal government's concerned? And if you want to go talk to a CEO of any corporation or whatever, who do you have to go through to get there? You have to go through the secretary. And when you research what a secretary is, a secretary is the holder of all bonds, notes, titles, certificates, etc. Okay? That's a secret of Aries. You know, we're still following along this whole babbling and pagan theme. It's been handed down to everybody. And so what I did is, to go back really to everybody's beginning, when you're born here, there's a birth certificate that's filed on your behalf through information given by generally the mother. And upon registering that, a organization is created. And I mean, you look at what a certificate is, a lot of people say, oh, it's a bond, it's a contract. Well, it has none of the elements of a bond. It has none of the elements of a contract. A certificate is exactly what it says it is. It's a certificate. So you need to go into a legal dictionary, look up the word certificate, look at the words that are used in the definition, and then also research those words. Because a certificate essentially gives you authorization to act in a certain capacity, okay? And so, okay, evidently, we're acting in the capacity of the organization that was created with the registration of that birth certificate. If you go and go on YouTube, look up Revised Article 9, you're going to find out that the judges and the attorneys who worked on the Revised Article 9, that's exactly what they say. They say it's an organization, okay? So you're looked at as agent for the organization. Well, I went to Secretary of State for the state where I was born and the state where I live, and I sent them a rescission of agent along with some other instructions on it. But I essentially just let them know that I was not going to be representing that organization anymore. I was not in a position for service of process for it. And about a month or so after that, I had gone to the DMV for another reason, and I pulled out a record of my quote-unquote driving. Okay? And they gave me a 7-year record. Well, I could think of right off the get at least 4 things that should have been on there. And a girl came and she set a piece of paper in front of me on the desk, and she started typing on her computer, and she looked back at me and she said, do you need something else? And I looked down at the piece of paper and said, is that it? She goes, yeah, that's it. She goes, why? I said, where does this come from? She said, it comes from Tallahassee. she said, is there a problem? I just kind of bewildered, shook my head no, and said, no, thank you, and left, because nothing was on there. The only thing in the body of it that it said private and confidential information, and then it said that I had applied for an ID in 2007 and it expired in 2011, which I have never applied for a state ID. And that was all it had in the body of it. So I found that very curious that any claim or attachment to the organization that they had made through the driver's license, they had apparently deleted. And the only thing that I can hold that to would be probably from that resignation as agent. Because, I've done steps as well with the certificate of live birth and a counter deed to it, along with other, an affidavit that went with it, and other information, and sent that to judicial departments. But after several months, actually, after I had done that, the driving record was still the same. It wasn't the same until I resigned as agent. That's when I really saw some activity happening. And besides that, go ahead.
In the last week, my name has disappeared.
How you doing? Trying to find a job, man, but outside of that, I'm all right.
All right. If you're not asking a question or something, please get it out, guys.
I resigned as well. Okay, I revoked the agent, and in the last week, my name has disappeared from court-related things or legal-related things. So some things are happening, but I don't know what is happening exactly.
When you say it's been removed from sport, can you speak a bit more what you mean by that?
Yes. About a week ago, my name appeared on 2 different court things, one past and one that's in the future that I didn't know about, and this week they're gone, or in the last 5 days. They disappeared. So 2 weeks they were there, and in the last week they've disappeared. My name has disappeared. So I don't know what that means.
May I?
Sure.
Does this have anything to do with the birth certificate? Okay, so I'm kind of in a court battle, thinking going to the higher courts, but I'm kind of been working behind the scenes. I'm trying to tie all this together that I'm a dead person as far as the court sees me, and
right.
I'm redoing my birth certificates not only for me but my second son. I'm having them sent to me, and then I'm going to send those out to the Secretary of State in each state. And then I think Bryan said that he also did one other thing, but so what it is that is it because that people are changing their birth certificates from dead to like a living person. So instead of the sea, I'm on land kind of thing. So is that where it's just there's other people.
I can't see what's going on with me. I can only say that since I did that recently, okay, and I know that all those notices were received, my name seems to be disappearing where it was there, 2 weeks ago.
And you did what now? Did you do something with your birth certificate, or you did something? I didn't catch that.
I did the nativity deed. I did a nativity deed, so I did a counter deed, and revoked the agent.
And that's what Bryan was talking about earlier about the agent.
Right.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So can I query real quick? When you say nativity deed, do you mean something along the lines of an ecclesiastical deed poll or something else?
Well, what you're doing is creating your own certificate for your entrance onto the world. So it's not really a birth certificate. It's a born certificate, maybe would be the more appropriate way. I don't have it in front of me right now. We kind of some people felt like calling it a nativity deed.
Something along the lines of a live life. Is that it?
Yeah, and I changed some things. Okay, it has a it's nicely done. However, like where my mother was named by her maiden name, I changed that to her married name, and that was kind of like a correction of the record to show that we weren't. I wasn't a bastard child. My parents were married, and yeah, it's a nativity deed, and there's some examples of it online in different places. I'm sure that we could get something to you to use as an example if you wanted to see something.
Oh, I appreciate that. I was just curious. I didn't mean to interrupt. Please continue.
No, sure. Now, I don't know if I don't know what effect my my thing had, because I've done multiple things throughout the past year and a half, and this was kind of the latest thing that I did, was the nativity deed, and sent it to the Secretary of State where I was born, and then Secretary of State federal level, and the Chief Justices where I was born, and then the Secretary of State where I live, and the Chief Justice where I live as well. So they all got the same thing. And the one from where I was born, they sent it back, and they included a kind of a cover letter saying that they couldn't authenticate it or apostille it. So they were denying my request. And I've handwritten them a letter to let them know that I didn't request it to be apostilled or authenticated. It was simply a notice and declaration, a public notice and declaration. So that's where I'm at with that. And
I think that's a great idea too. But I don't want people confusing the two here, because I hear a lot of people talk about my birth certificate, or they'll say I've got my original birth certificate and things like that. People really need to start, and I don't mean this wrongly, but cleaning up their language. Because when you clean up your language, you'll clean up your mind, and you'll clean up your mindset, and you'll start seeing things from the perspective that they really fall into. Because when you're looking at that birth certificate, it's not your birth certificate. That certificate, because number one, people are not birthed, all right? People are born, okay? Birth is not a derivative of the word born when it comes to humans, or I don't even like using the word human, but when it comes to people, okay? That birth certificate was the registration of the organization that was organized by the state. And that organization was organized by the state, one, so that hopefully you would identify yourself with it, which everybody did, and two, so that you could use that as a medium, kind of a go-between, for you to operate in commerce. You're going to be using that in order to conduct business and things like that, and to get other licenses and whatever other bullshit stuff, okay? So, yeah, that birth certificate was for the organization. It wasn't for you. And the best example, best way to prove that is go and look at it. My certificate of live birth looks exactly like my certificate of title to my vehicle, okay? Well, there's one big difference, though. On the certificate of title for my vehicle, it tells me that the vehicle is a Crown Victoria made by Ford, okay? Well, on the certificate of live birth, it says that I'm a male. That's all it says. I'm a male what? Male goat, male dog, male pig, male what? What kind of male am I? Because the words male and female are actually scientific words and governmental words that were created for animals, not for people. Right?
Also,
yeah, years ago, the birth certificate used to say boy or girl.
Yeah, this is Paul in Lyons. Man, you're stupider than shit. Birth.
Thank you. You've been indoctrinated very well. Nice to hear.
May I?
Yes, how you doing?
Hi, this is Catherine. I was following along good, but I missed that last part about the birth certificate. So my question is, if I've heard so much about the UCCs, and I've talked to people who are like doing things with it and had success with it, but something inside of me, I just don't. I feel like it's part of the fraud, and I've been so unsure if I should do it, and I haven't authenticated my birth certificate or anything because I felt like I don't need anything at all, because that would just be participating. And but I understand it makes sense to put people on notice. Like when she said she wasn't looking for it to be authenticated, she was just stating that she was making a declaration, not looking for authentication. That makes a lot of sense to me. So is it necessary to at least get your birth certificate authenticated, or even that's not necessary?
Well, I had mine authenticated, and I did it because I looked at what the rules and the employee handbook said for the employees of the government. And in their handbook, under I think it's 28 U.S.C. 1733, it says that a properly authenticated document stands as the original. Okay. Well, in order to be the controller of something, you've got to be the holder of it. You've got to hold the original. If a guy down the street wanted to make a claim to my vehicle, and the police were there, and they said, okay, well, who's got the title? And I'm holding the original, and he's holding a copy of it. Well, I guess it gets the vehicle. The guy holding the original does.
That makes a lot of sense.
So I basically got it and declared the holder of it under 28 U.S.C. 1733. Said this is how you are supposed to observe this. Can
you say that again?
My account, and I said I got mine authenticated. And
28 U.S.C.
I got mine 1733.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks.
Pretty sure that's what it's under. But either that, or you can just put properly authenticated document into your search, and I'm sure it'll come up. Put it in quotation marks.
Oh, okay.
But and so therefore, that organization is no longer theirs to do whatever they want to, hit the bonds, and if they do, that's fine, because at least I've already given them notice, and so I would have some recourse in the future if I needed to take recourse or wanted to for whatever reason.
That makes sense.
There's so many people that want to go sue judges and this and that and stuff. To me, I don't want to enter onto their battlefield. I want to step away from the battlefield. They're going to have their little fight going on, and there's nothing you can do about it. Just count me out. That's the way I look at it.
Right. So I should at least authenticate the birth certificate. That would be like the ultimate.
Right, but when you get authenticated, you have to have your mindset as to why you're doing it and what you're going to do with it. So some people get it and they're like, okay, now what do I do? Right.
So after I get authenticated, then I need to send it to the Secretary of State in each state to put everybody on notice? Is that what I need to do, or?
your birth state and the federal.
Primarily. And right. And Secretary of State at the federal level.
Secretary of State what?
Where you're born and at the federal level.
And then you hear the last part, I'm sorry.
The federal level, which would be Rex Tillerson right now.
Which would be where?
That'd be Rex Tillerson. He's the Secretary of State, Department of State.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So basically, the reason I would be doing it is just because I don't want to be harassed. And if I ever am taken into court for any reason, I want to have standing. So I shouldn't even enter a courtroom if I don't have that authentication, correct? Even if I open up a court of record, correct?
Well, that'd be up to you. Myself, there's really no reason to enter into that temple. Court's really all done on paper anyway. That stuff you see, in the courtroom, that's just for show. That's just to intimidate the rest of the people out there.
Right. I have because do you carry a driver's license? I know that you don't need one, to travel and stuff, but do you carry one personally?
The only thing I carry in my pocket is my common law ID that I made up, and it's been accepted everywhere, even at the Secretary of State's office.
Okay, and you made that yourself?
Correct.
Yeah?
Yes, correct.
Do you share? Have you shared what it looks like, or the document?
Yeah, it's been shared numerous times on my Facebook group, which is Tactical Sovereignty, and it can be found in the photos there.
Oh, great! I'll find it there then. Okay, super. Thank you. So I have one more question. Is that okay?
Sure.
Thank you. Currently, I had just moved from one town to another, and I got a parking ticket. It was my third day of the move. It was a smoldering hot day. I pulled up. We called ahead of time for pizza, and I pulled up. I was literally in the building for 3 minutes. Came out. I had a parking ticket, and it was $60 ticket. I lost the thing because I was in the middle of a move, and there was crap everywhere. 7 months later, I found it. I went down as a citizen and requested a hearing. It was my dad's truck, and I was more concerned about his registration getting suspended for some reason because I was driving his truck. They don't know who the driver was, They just got his license and registration and all that. And so I didn't want him to get in trouble. So I requested a hearing as a citizen because I didn't feel I had enough confidence in anything that I knew to do it any other way. So I went and I got the hearing, and I begged for forgiveness for my sins and crime. And the ticket by then had doubled to $120. So they lowered it to $60, but then they only gave me a week to pay, and then I didn't have the money to pay in a week. Then I got a letter from the court telling me that I must pay $60 to reopen the case to even pay the ticket. I got to pay $60 to reopen the case. And they made it seem like that was my only option, was to reopen the case. And that motor vehicle may get notified, and my driver's license may end up getting suspended. And then I get a letter from motor vehicle that if I don't pay by July 19th, then my license will be suspended. So they made it sound like I could just go down to the court and pay the ticket and all this. But I'm like, I don't even want to pay the ticket, and I'm at the point where I don't even care if my driver's license gets suspended. And I'm thinking, do I really need my driver's license, for anything else besides driving? I don't know, because I don't really have another ID.
Well, it would be nice to have their driver's license in good standing. That way, when you're ready to go and rescind it, you can. Because
it has to be in good standing if you're going to rescind it?
I would say so. It's kind of hard to rescind something that is not active.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense, though. Okay. So this was my plan of action. I was going to go down and open up a court of record, and then once I requested that to be done, I was going to submit a declaration of life. And then in doing all that, I mean, I only have till July 17th, which is 17 days, but not even because today's the 3rd. And so, like, all this is rush, and I was hopefully, I know it's a 3-step process to get the birth certificate authenticated, and I have no idea if that's even possible to do by the 17th. And then I was going to submit that into my court of record. But then somebody had recommended that I just pay whatever I need to pay so it doesn't get suspended and call it a day, and then educate myself for future situations. What do you recommend?
That's what I would recommend as well, because there's no way you'd have that done by the 17th, and there's not even really much evidence as to whether or not that particular court would do any of the actions that you want. Primarily because you kind of answered your own question in the beginning, I think, without realizing it. And that is, I mean, you start out saying that you had gotten a ticket for the parking offense or whatever. But then later on you kind of answered your own question. You didn't get the ticket. The vehicle got the ticket. The reason why you're getting pinned for it is because you stepped forward and agreed to be the agent for service of process over that situation. You know?
Right.
Like I said, it makes it kind of difficult when you're dealing with somebody else's automobile as well, because you don't want their registration to be suspended or anything, or get the vehicle to get impounded because the vehicle failed to perform as the ticket required.
Exactly.
I would recommend everybody also, if anybody listens to Angela Stark's My Private Audio, just for the record, this is July 3rd. Go and listen to her last call. Rich Iverson came on, and he really dropped some good info when it comes to situations like that.
Okay, what's the last name? Angela?
Stark, S-T-A-R-K. And it's called My Private Audio on TalkShoe.
Okay. Super. All right, well, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to let other people have the floor now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
If I may.
Go ahead.
This is the moderator. I'm just going to do a little quick announcement. It doesn't matter who you know, who you think you are. Please be respectful of others and ask for the floor and wait for them to yield. And do not attack the speaker, because I will kick you automatically, as others have learned tonight. I yield.
That's all right. You know, I think that really shows the indoctrination level so many people have. So many people want to hold on so tightly to all the lies that they've been told all this time that to me anymore, I see a lot of people get offensive and mad and angry and things like that when they see this happening. To me, I just laugh, because it's like, wow, you know, you've just been indoctrinated so well. I mean, that's why in courts that they want to have psych evaluations done on people, because you're not following the profile of that indoctrination that everybody's supposed to be following. So they need to have you mentally evaluated. You know what I mean? And if you're not following along with the rest of the sheep, you know, there's got to be something wrong with you. Oh, my gosh, how dare you think for yourself? I mean, you went and researched? What are you doing researching stuff? We sent you to school. What else do you need?
I always love it, too, when people come out with you can believe what you want to believe. I'm quick to let them know that in my journey, I had to shed all beliefs and start going with facts and, true education, too, of history and learning the things that have been withheld from us. And, right, there's so much information.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, my father, I made a slip earlier when I was talking about him being a principal of a school, and I said pastor. But that was actually kind of a Freudian slip, because he really actually was a pastor. He was a assistant pastor for Rex Humbard, if anybody remembers him from TV back in the 60s or 70s, whenever he was on. But, so I had been given so much religious information that, when I started looking at legal aspects and things that had been done and found out that essentially everything we've been told has either, one, been an outright lie or just a little bit of a twist on the truth, at least, that I had to stop and say, wait a minute, how about if everything that's been presented to us hasn't been completely 100% correct? And so you've got to go look at the religions that's been forced on everybody. And that's one of the biggest things people hold near and dear to their heart. And when you really start looking at it and going back to original text and, like I said, depending on your learning curve, go buy a Bible that has the red letter edition so you can read the words of Yeshua. If you've been studying this legal and lawful stuff for very long, you'll start really seeing the message that he was telling people. It'll bounce right out at you because he was really here to do what the Jews wanted. The Jews wanted a different political leader, and he was providing that. But the people didn't understand the difference between the concrete and the abstract levels of reality. They wanted a guy to come with a sword and start lopping off heads, is what they wanted.
And we're trying to maneuver in a world that encompasses both the spiritual and the physical realm equally.
Correct. And but it's the spiritual realm that controls the physical realm. And that's why I said you have to look at this from a spiritual comprehension level as well. And, people are talking about the UCC. The UCC, I've asked so many people if they could sum it up in one sentence for me what it is. Because to me, it's essentially a notice. It's a public notice that's been put out. And what you're doing with that is you're using their system, their Uniform Commercial Code that they set up in order to do that with, whereas, the real living man or woman doesn't have to do that. Those things are for organizations and for corporations and things like that to utilize. The natural man or woman just does it by a simple notice. You can give your own simple notice, and that's really the exit strategy right there. That's how you just put them on notice, and unless they can rebut that notice, it stands. Even in their system, it stands as truth.
I might go overboard, because I have done so many things, including the UCC, which I consider to be public notices. But that was where I put my information, letting the world know that I'm now the attorney in fact. I always was, but I'm making it clear I'm the attorney in fact. I'm the, there's the secured party creditor and the trust.
Okay, you all really need to look up the CJS.
Thank you for butting in. Thank you for butting in.
I'm sorry.
So anyway, those were the UCC filings. To me, when I went through the documents and recreated them, they made a lot of sense to me from the standpoint that we've got the physical or the public and the private. And this was a great deal of knowledge that showed that how you were separating the public from the private. So was that necessary? Probably not. I believe what Bryan is saying is that we do have the standing. It doesn't seem to be respected in many cases, and certainly not in my case. But, which is what drove me to do many of the things, because I wanted to make sure that I had the standing. It's taken a great deal of education to learn about these things. So I guess in short, I would say this, even though maybe the UCC filings weren't necessary, but the documents that I had to painfully go through and learn were extremely valuable in showing me and helping me comprehend the difference between the living being and the fictional character. So that's my little 2 cents worth. And anybody out there have any questions?
I want to make a statement here to you as well. And a lot of people will think about, okay, well, I need to see some templates or this or that, and it's really not that big of a deal. And, in fact, it doesn't always have to be done in writing. I don't know if I had mentioned this story before, but I think I've only been here once before, but I had been in an accident here a few years ago where I actually killed myself in the accident. They had to bring me back 2 or 3 times. I found out later on, much later on. And they told me when I came out of a coma that, it's going to be a year before I walked again and 2 years before I got back to work. And this was first week of November that I came out of the coma. I came out of the coma on my birthday, November 4th. And I was back to work the first week of February. My goal was, I am not going to be sitting on my butt for 2 years. And so in a very short amount of time, I was right back to work. Well, anyway, because of that, doctors monitor me. I have to go in every 3 months just because there's so much hardware put in and so many things done that they want to make sure that everything was still in place and set up the way that it was intended, nothing slipping out, there's not any problems. And so my doctor wrote me a script to go have x-rays done at the hospital here. And all these hospitals here on Southwest Florida are owned by the same company, so you're really not going to go to a competitor, okay? And I took that script to the doctor. The doctor looked at it, and actually, let me back up. About 2 weeks earlier, I had gotten bit by a brown recluse, and I went in. They spent about 5 minutes working on the wound and gave me a med. And a woman came in a pantsuit and opened up her briefcase, set up her computer, all that. And she said, well, I see here you're self-pay, you don't have any insurance. How are we going to handle this? She said, where do you live at? And I said, well, I live with my girlfriend. She said, well, what's your girlfriend's name? I said, her name is my girlfriend. And she just looked at me. And I said, ma'am, I operate in the private. And she said, I fully understand. She packed up her stuff. She left. They never sent me a bill. Then, like I was saying, several weeks later, I went in to have these x-rays done. And a woman at the computer, she looked at the script and typed up a bunch of stuff. And I saw her kind of squint her eyes. And I said, well, what do you see? She said, well, it says here that you operate solely in the private. And I said, yeah. And so she took a scrap piece of paper and wrote down an address on it and slid it across the desk to me, and she said, go here. Because those x-rays that they wanted to have done were going to be about $1,600 or $1,800. And so I took that piece of paper and went to the address. It was only about $2.50, $3 away. And there's nobody in the waiting room, nobody in the parking lot. It's a small little building. And gave it to the woman the x-ray prescription. She went and typed up my information into the computer. And she said, okay, no problem. She said, give me about 2 minutes. And she gave me a piece of paper. It had on there, I think it was $165 is all it was going to cost. I was in and out of there in about 20 minutes. And I was like, wow, like $150, $160 compared to $1,600, $1,800. I mean, there's a big difference between operating in the private and operating in the public. And no notices had been put in. I hadn't filed any paperwork with their billing department or anything like that. That was just all done on a verbal basis.
That is really cool. So you just gave them your... So when you went in, what did you do when you filled out the paperwork?
I didn't fill out any paperwork. The only thing I filled out was name, date of birth, and if I had any allergies.
They didn't ask you for your insurance information right away before they treated you?
No, because it was already in the computers that I was self-pay and that I operated in the private.
Oh.
It seemed like that word private really stuck out to that first woman when I had been at the hospital over the spider bite.
Right.
When I said that word, boom, she knew exactly what it meant. And at that time, I was just kind of toying around with stuff and had a pretty good grasp as to what it was, but she obviously had a much better grasp than me than I did at the time.
That's very interesting. I'm going to have to break down and go to a doctor at some point or another. It might even be soon because I have an injury here that I've already gone to a holistic healer. And anyway, that's been my major concern, is that I'm not contracting, and I don't even know if I have insurance. I don't go anymore. I don't go to doctors anymore. They collude with government, for one. So now I'm just thinking, so if I do go, that would really be, I would just tell them I'm self-pay and I operate in private, right?
Well, one of the things that I've been thinking about doing, like I said, I have to go in like every 3 months just for a checkup. And I've been thinking about notifying the CFO of that big hospital conglomerate and sending them a copy. And let me reiterate that to everybody. Whatever you do with that authenticated certificate of live birth, only send copies. Always hold on to the original and write on it, outside the margin, a copy for administrative purposes only, But I've been thinking about going and typing up actually a notice to the CFO, sending the CFO a copy of the authentication, and giving him permission to hit any bond accounts that they need to hit for payment for services. And also include, like we were talking with Dixie earlier, include that routing number and the account number, which is the Social Security number itself, along with that.
There you go. Go in as the authorized representative, giving him permission to. I wonder how that would work.
Absolutely. I don't see why.
Because we are the authorized representative. That's the thing that when Dixie was talking about that in the beginning, and I did review the same gentleman's videos, Harvey Dent, I think is his name.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's got those. He's getting googly-eyed, isn't he, or something?
Yeah. I call him Harvey Trust Fund Baby Dent now.
Right, and he wants to be a trust fund baby and believes that he has that coming to him. He probably does, But nonetheless, that's sometimes people talk about giving to don't take from Caesar. What is Caesar's and what is Caesar's? Exactly. Since we are exiting Babylon, wouldn't determining what is Caesar's be part of the whole thing here?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and part of what I was thinking with sending that to the CFO for the hospital is that we know that they're already hitting one or both of the bonds anyway. They're hitting a Social Security bond or the birth certificate bond or both. And by sending them that letter would let them know, number one, we know that they're hitting it. Number two, they've been hitting it really without our permission, at least not knowingly giving them permission to hit it. So if we send them a document actually giving them permission to hit that, that would kind of put them in a catch-22.
Well, it'd be interesting. This whole thing is very interesting because where are you, the authorized representative, and what do we, have the ability to do without getting ourselves into trouble here, but, to take care of ourselves and take care of our family. And that's what I feel is right and just, is the means to be able to do those things. We do have that's all taken from our human energy to begin with. So,
well, one of the things I want to say too is that people think that it's a crazy idea, thinking that they're assuming that you're just the agent for the organization that created And like I said, people can go look up Revised Article 9 on YouTube and watch it, and it's right there. The judges and the attorneys say it. But on like your personal checks or your paychecks, that line where you sign, and you look at it with a magnifying glass, and it says, authorizing signature or whatever it says on there. Well,
I think it's authorized representative or something. Yeah.
Right. Well, if that's not such a secret, why don't they just have a bold line right there, and underneath that line put authorized representative underneath that line? Why do they have to put it so tiny? You know what I mean?
Right.
That
That
should be everybody's first clue.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a big clue. Mm-hmm. So we do this authenticating the birth certificate and all the things that we have done and that we continue to do to remove the presumptions that we're incompetent and can't handle or manage our own affairs, which I've given a lot of thought to, by the way, because there's some people that feel like we should all just have these like Visa cards, that we can buy whatever we want, whenever we want, as much as we want, so forth and so on. And I don't see that, but I look at it from a standpoint of like a mother. When you're teaching a child responsibility, you might give them an accounting thing to do with a little bit of money to work with. I was a believer in that myself, but I could never have given any of my kids an unlimited Visa, right?
Well,
they would have gotten themselves in so much trouble.
Yeah, you think this country is in trouble financially now. Right. What if everybody had that black card or whatever out there and could run and get and do whatever they wanted? Number one, overdoses would quadruple overnight.
That would please there, but,
Oh, absolutely.
Anybody.
But, yeah.
Yeah.
It would not be healthy for the chattel property.
Right. That cannot be the best way either, and I have to look at that realistically and say, no, it can't be like that. I do see where we are, all kings and queens and the royalty and everything. And we should have access to the resources for what we need, but that has to be done in an environment or in a manner that's healthy and productive and doesn't harm. So yeah, that whole thing of unlimited, I don't see it. That's me. That's how I see it.
May I?
And that's my take. Sure, go ahead.
What does that mean, authorizing signature? What does that represent?
The agency that was created from the birth certificate. That's where it all starts. So.
And you agreeing to be agent for it.
Mm-hmm.
You agreeing to be the authorizing agent.
Well, even if it didn't say that, the assumption you assume that that you're the authorizing signature.
Well, it does say,
right,
if you take that magnifying glass and look, you will see where it says authorized.
It's there. Yeah, I know it's there. I'm just wondering why. I understand
because it falls under.
But when you sign it, you're thinking you're authorizing the check.
Right, and the reason why, though, is because we are not thinking about it from the correct mindset, not the mindset that the commercial activity looks at it from. The commercial activity looks at it from the perspective of whoever is signing it is operating in the capacity as agent for that organization. We look at it as, I'm the correct person or the correct man or woman to be autographing it because it's got my name on the check. We don't realize that there's actually an organization set out there that requires an agent in order for it to interface in commerce, and we are agreeing to be that agent. We are agreeing to put on another mask other than what our Creator gave us.
Now, is that...
Yeah, it has
I don't
that
mean
all
to be,
capital letter name.
The what?
The name that'll be on the check is always in all capital letters because it's that legal fictional entity, and you are the authorized representative. It's the entity that was created with the birth certificate off of the record of live birth.
Yeah.
So, does that make sense?
Yeah, okay. No, but yeah.
No.
Well, that name that you're seeing there is not your name. It's the name of that organization.
Thank you.
You mean the name that's in the upper left-hand corner or whatever? I haven't had a checking account in 40 years.
Yeah.
But.
Right.
Yes. The all of your statements, whether they're utility bills or mortgage payments or whatever, are all going to come in that all capital letter name. Okay. Sometimes they slide things through in the upper lower case, but that's just another account. Because they did kind of capture the all capital letter full name, and then they captured the capital letters with the middle initial. That's another one. So they really do have a lot of different variations out there, and the only one that is actually your proper name would be the lowercase. That would be based on Black's Law, Capitis Demonitio Maxima, and Capitis Demonitio Minima.
Well, let me explain another aspect to this as well that a lot of people haven't looked at, because I think a lot of people hopefully comprehend the Capitis Demonitio Maxima, Minima, and Medium, but when people are named, when your mom and dad named you, my mom and dad named me Brian Glenn. Well, the state assumed that my last name would be Parker. And this goes way back to European times, okay? And back in those times, and you even look at scripturally, there were no last names used. Like Yeshua, he was Jesus of Nazareth, okay? And that was the way he was identified. But, and in the old European times, which is carried on today, if you look at names, you've got Smiths, okay? Well, that last name wasn't the name necessarily for that individual. That last name was to identify the occupation that that family was in. So if your last name was Smith, you might have been a goldsmith, coppersmith, whatever type of smith. Your last name was Baker, you might have been some sort of a baker. My last name Parker meant that I took care of the parks and wildlife and things like that for the state. Okay, and that was where the derivative of all these last names came from. And you look at John Quinn, is that his name, John Quinn? He started up the Joel societies and things in California. And when he had gone to court, he had gone into court and argued a misidentification. And he was not that name. And a lot of people saw that and said, oh, yeah, he's talking about that all-cap name, da-da-da. Well, the judge did find that there was a problem with identifying the correct party. He was not the party that was named there. And the reason why wasn't because it was an all-caps name. It was because it came back to that last name. He was not involved in that occupation. Thus, here we go back again to the whole driving thing. He was not operating in commerce and did not operate in commerce under that name. He did not perform the duties of that commercial last name. And so the judge found in his favor. And I hope that kind of clarifies things a little bit regarding names.
But it does sound like a fluke, like was the judge just having a good day or?
I think it was because the case was argued correctly. Yeah. A lot of people go into court and they're like, oh, I'm the living man. I live, I breathe, I bleed. Da-da. Well, yeah, the judge knows that. You'd have to be a moron not to know that. He just wants to know, are you the agent for that organization? That's it.
Pretty much, right? This is a business deal. I don't know why you're acting crazy on me, right? Right? It's
exactly.
Just business in their courts.
Yeah, this is just all business, and you've got that last name there showing that you're operating a commercial activity. So, are you agreeing to that? And if so, let's continue on with this commercial process.
One of the first questions I'll always ask you is, do you understand? Right?
That was actually John Quaid. People can go and look up his info and Jarrell Assemblies. He was actually an actor. He played parts with Burt Reynolds and things like that.
May I?
Go ahead.
Well, I'm just thinking what marvelously devious minds have thought of this stuff.
Right?
Yeah, my goodness,
Talk about clever deception.
Well, and you know what? This is nothing new. This is the same battle that was going on when Yeshua was walking the earth.
Yeah.
And what he was teaching people as well, and what John the Baptist was teaching people, was to separate yourself from the corporation, from that Roman corporate system. And John the Baptist, he had his name because he was going around baptizing people into the kingdom of heaven instead of into the kingdom of Rome.
He was crazy.
What a lunatic.
He
should have had a psych evaluation.
They definitely would have put him in the nut house, you guys. But he was just, when I look at it, I see how he separated himself so much.
And they did worse to him than put him in the nut house, too. I mean...
Yeah, they did have bad things. We have the modern day, whatever they did back then, right? We've got the modern day.
We've got a modern day version of putting your head on a platter.
Right. Might have been easier back then. I don't know.
It may have been. It may have been. They weren't wrapped up in as much commercial activity as people are now. I mean, nowadays, if you are, you've got simple things just as a cell phone, Well, that cell phone's got to be set up, by the agent of somebody or the agent for something, And that's one of the other things that I did as well to put a layer between things is I went and filed DBA here on Florida. I'm sure it can be found in a lot of other codes, but there was a code out of Secretary of State for Oregon that said that if you are trying to operate in commerce without a registered name, then you may not have standing in court. And when you look at court, that's everything that's going on in court. It's all commercial, period. And so what I did is I went and did the DBA, and I captured all derivatives of that name as well. And then I used that to open up a non-interest-bearing account. And I opened it non-interest-bearing under the philosophy of Scripture, because everything in commerce, they all follow Scripture, whether people want to believe it or not. The state is more than happy for everybody to be atheists and follow whatever pagan crap you want to follow. And they really don't want you looking at Christianity seriously, because if you do, you're really going to start learning their ways and what they're doing. And actually, not that they're actually following it, they're mimicking it. It's Satan mimicking a legal process. All right? It's exactly what's happening. And so under this scriptural teachings that the debtor is liable to, or the borrower is liable to the lender, okay, I opened it under a non-interest-bearing account. I gave it a couple months, and I purposely went and bounced a couple checks off it to see what would happen. What happened is I got that little card in the mail. I got 2 of them, one for each check, that showed the amount that was in the account, the amount that the check was written for. There was a $30 fee for those checks. And then down at the bottom where it shows amount billed, it said 0. They never billed me for them, for either of them. The reason why is because they couldn't. Because I was not liable to the borrower. I wasn't liable to the bank because I wasn't accepting any benefits from them. I should say I was not liable to the lender because I was not receiving benefits. So therefore, they couldn't charge me anything. And on top of it, normally you have a bounced check, they don't get paid, they get sent back. Well, on top of it, the bank covered those checks. They paid them. And I just had to go in and make up the balance.
Did you use your Social Security number when you opened that account?
Well, that's kind of a unique situation with me because when I first set up a bank account down here, I gave them my driver's license that I was carrying at that time. And unknowingly to me, that when that driver's license was set up, whatever secretary was doing it had made a mistake, and she erred in one digit of it. So my accounts have all been set up under a Social Security number that's really not mine.
Oh, wow. So
yeah, it did, because they look at that ID and they link the info for it back to the account, whatever Social Security was used for it, or EIN, whatever was used to get it.
Oh, wow. Well, so probably, I mean, I wonder, like, you would show up with no credit then at all. You know, a lot of times what banks and different places do is they run a credit check. There's like a soft credit check and then a hard credit check where you authorize it. But a lot of businesses, they're not supposed to, and I do believe it's illegal, but they'll still run a soft credit check. And if nothing comes back at all, that's actually considered, you know, they want to work with you. No credit is better than bad credit.
Well, somewhere along the line between the stuff getting entered and then a credit check or whatever happens, I think a correction is made somewhere through there on my situation, because, I mean, I have fallen into the trap of purchasing a property, you know, and everything goes through. I can look at a credit score and stuff like that, you know, so.
Right. Well, then you probably already have really good credit anyway with your regular Social Security number.
I have okay credit. Yeah, I have okay credit. I had to wait for a lot of those doctor bills from that accident to fall off because lovely Bill Clinton allowed hospital bills to be put on your credit score. So I had to wait, you know, for the 6-7 years or whatever for those to drop. But after that, the score went back up.
Wow.
May I?
Well, yes, go ahead.
You just said that you had to make up the balance. Did they send you a notice to that effect, or?
No. I just went to the ATM and I saw the account was minus X amount, and so I put that in. Yeah, the only thing that they sent to me was that a notice of insufficient funds, and like I said, it stated on there, you know, that there's a $30 fee for it, and then when it said where, you know, how much was charged for it, it said 0. So, but no, that was the only thing I received regarding it. I just felt if I wanted to keep that account going, I should probably go make up that amount, you know.
Yeah. Okay. I yield.
Very interesting, though. But you did reimburse the bank for the money.
Oh, yeah.
Even
yeah.
They said 0.
Exactly.
Okay. Even though they said 0.
Because, yeah.
Okay.
Even though it said that there was 0 amount charged to me, you know, when I went and looked at the account at the ATM, it said it was, in a minus state. So that was the amount that they covered to finish covering those checks that had been written. So, yeah, it's just an honorable thing in my point of view, even though they're totally dishonorable.
No, for sure. I wanted to make sure that I understood exactly how that went. So I don't screw it up when I tell your story to somebody else.
No, that's fine. And, I also recommend to people, and I've been talking to Dixie about it as well, and, as far as choosing sides, it's very, very simple to do. And I think that was the first thing I really started seeing results from was when I became ordained. And, because when I would be pulled over, I would make sure that, stuck in with my insurance and stuff in that book is my ordination card. And the officer's eyes would always perk up, and they'd say, "Oh, you're clergy?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, thank you very much."
That doesn't hurt.
And that's when my interactions with them started changing 100%.
Nice.
Because I've had 11 situations, I think, so far now with them, and I've not received one ticket, not a warning, not anything. And those pullovers normally last under 2 minutes. I've never had pullovers ever last under 2 minutes for me before. They're always 15, 20 minutes, it seems like.
Right.
And when they come back and tell me I can go, they're extremely nice.
That's really cool. What do you suppose that's about? Is that any ideas on that?
Well, I think that has to do with choosing sides. That letting them know that you're not on their side. You're not their property. You've made a decision as to what side you're going to follow. And you're not following the ways of the world. You're following the ways of your Creator, which is the way it's supposed to originally have been. You look at, I referenced earlier in the call, the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law regarding establishment of religion. Okay, well, go and research those words. What's an establishment? An establishment can be you, your body. You are an establishment. You're an establishment of your Creator. And so, well, can they make any laws regarding you? No. Well, what's all the other stuff written after that first sentence of the First Amendment for? Well, all that other stuff that's written in there is written for those bodies that have not declared themselves an establishment of religion. And I think they used that word religion kind of generically at that time. And it also actually, I tied that in together with, I believe it's Article 53 of the Lieber Code, which the system still follows. I think in 2005 it was even referenced in the Army Field Manual. And I recommend everybody go read the Lieber Code. You read the Lieber Code, and you're going to understand why they are doing things on the road that they're doing right now and how they're getting away with it. Because they're given permission to do those things right in the Lieber Code. And Article 53 says that if the standing army, who I firmly believe the standing army are the police force that we see on the streets, says if the standing army should encounter a group of POWs, if there's hospital workers or clergy in their midst, that they are to be released and not be viewed as POWs, unless they want to stay behind and administer to the rest of the group.
Wow. I'll bet you're right.
And when I say that they're the standing army, I think it's very self-evident if you want to go read the Army Field Manual and read what it says about uniforms. You are not allowed to have hashtags on your arms. You're not allowed to have stars. You're not allowed to wear flags unless you are in the military. Well, go look at the uniform of the police force right now. They are the standing army. That is what their uniforms consist of.
Yeah, unfortunately, they started doing that a while back, didn't they?
Oh, yeah, a long time ago.
Militarizing. When would you say they started militarizing the law enforcement?
I think it's been a gradual process. I mean, I think it's been a part of the movement of the New World Order or whatever. And I'm not really old enough to know what uniforms really look like, say, back in the 50s or 40s or 30s. But I would refer people to go back to congressional records of December 9th of 1945. Because at that time, Congress turned all offices of government, right down to municipalities, right down to your mayor and your tax collector and the police. Congress turned all of those offices over to the UN, over to the United Nations. So when I hear people talk about kicking the United Nations out of America, which they normally say United States, which is an incorrect term to use, but when they talk about kicking the UN out, I have to laugh because they don't realize we are the UN. This is the UN. Why do you think that they don't pay any rent or lease on their building in New York? Well, who doesn't pay any rent or pay any lease on a building? The owner. Because who's the owner going to pay it to? Himself?
Right? Well, that's crazy.
May I?
Go ahead.
Hey, what's up?
Just here in Ohio, on the road yesterday, on the 4-lane, the state troopers were all over the place, and all blue lights, no red lights anywhere. Well, in the radiator, there are 2 red lights in the radiator, but other than that, it's all blue lights everywhere. Which is the UN, right?
Well, that's the UN, and you see the red lights and the blue lights on these vehicles, and they have to know what they stand for. Red lights are for fire, blue lights are for water emergency. So you got fire emergency, water emergency. It's funny they pull you over and they got both of those colors of lights going. It's like, oh, wait, what's going on here? Where's the water and where's the fire emergency at? But yeah, the UN predominantly uses blue because you're looking at water. You're looking at a commercial activity. You're looking at Admiralty law, maritime law.
Not to mention that earlier in the call, also equated blue to obey.
Right. Blue is obedience.
Right.
And they're showing you who they're obedient to. They're obedient to a commercial environment.
And the law of the sea, right?
And the law of the sea. SEE. The Holy See.
Well, it is an awful lot to absorb, because there's so many different things that go into everything that we do, and that gives us clues and comprehensions of what's going on around us, whether it's through colors or religions, churches, your governments, government agencies. It's amazing that in so many ways they operate in plain open sight, almost as if to mock many of us, while others can't even see what's going on.
No, absolutely. And, I'd really have to say, I really didn't want to believe it at first, but the more you start looking into who and what is really running things, it seems like really the first big entity you run across are the Masons. And the Masons are in charge of so much. I was driving past a Masonic temple today, and like I said, I drive a white Crown Victoria. It's a police interceptor, a retired police interceptor. And I was driving past a Masonic temple, and there was a truck pulling out of the Masonic temple. And the guy behind the wheel of the truck, he's waving at me like I'm his best buddy. And I'm just kind of shaking my head going, oh, my God, And you look at the road signs on the road. The yield sign that it's a triangle pointing down, that stands for a pagan deity. A sign with the triangle pointing upward, that's another pagan deity. The stop signs are in the side of a hexagram. Those are hexagrams. They're six-sided. And that's your Saturn deity. And you start seeing more and more of this everywhere you look, and it's just like, God, you shake your head, going, wow. It's like you said, they're mocking us.
I started on the study of symbology a few years ago, I guess it was, and it was amazing, the things that came out there. And a lot of that came from us truly being illiterate, which we still are, by the way. Even if you're well-read, you're still illiterate in reality, I think. Unless you're David Wynn Miller, or something. Most of us just aren't. So, but symbology was used many, many years ago because that was how people didn't know how to read at all, and they were taught symbols. For one, then black magic has different things to do with it too, but symbology is still very alive, and I think it's used for programming in a lot of ways.
Well, I'd recommend anybody, go on your favorite search me engine and look up Science and Symbols Rule the World. And you'll find so much info there.
Yeah, you can uncover an awful lot of information just with the symbology. And what do you know what a seven-sided, like not an octagon, but a seven-sided one?
That'd be like a septa something or other. I was never really great in those studies.
Just curious.
I should have been. I'd probably be way further ahead than I am now. But geometry
right.
wasn't. And actually, that wasn't even a college course that I chose. So I was like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Too much math.
For sure.
Too much math. All you have to know is that every number equates to 9. And you take any number out there, and it all breaks down to 9. And actually, math was taught totally different on America prior to the World Wars, because actually learning math helps your mind start connecting different firing points and be able to break down situations and comprehend situations easier, because you've got all those little firing points activated in your brain already. That's what studying math is for. Well, the powers that be wanted to change the way lifestyle in America was, and they want to change the mindset of people in America. Everybody knows that that's what the word government means. It's to govern the mind. All right? And so what they did is they actually, through Project Paperclip as well, they adopted a lot of the teachings of Germany and what was being used at that time to kind of mold people's mind. And prior to that time, you ask anybody what the first 10 digits of the numeric code was, and they'll tell you it's 0 through 9. Now you ask people today, they'll probably tell you 1 through 10. It's because they wanted to change that way of thinking, And with the way math was done at that time was also educating everybody that if you use the power of 9, that'll help you figure out a lot of math problems. And comprehending that every number breaks down to 9. To put it simply, if people don't know, you take the number 13. You add the 1 and 3. 1 and 3 is 4. Minus the 4 from 13, what do you have? You have 9. And you can take any number and break it all down to 9 using that method. I was kind of laughing the other day. Somebody had posted something, and it said something like, only geniuses will get this or whatever. And it had a list of numbers with plus, minus, divide, multiply, whatever. And there was a few people, I hate to say they got it right, not like I was saying they got it right, but they comprehended how math works. And the way math works is you start with multiplying first, and then you go to the division, and then you go to the addition, and then you go to the subtraction. And that is the sequential order that you're supposed to do a math problem like that in. And I just looked at that and started laughing to myself, because when you look at it, okay, first you're multiplying, and then what are you doing? You're dividing it. And then you're adding. What do you do after that? Then you're subtracting it. You're building up, breaking down. Building up, breaking down. And that's the way this whole system works, is building up, breaking down. They break you down and make you subservient. Build you up, make you think, oh, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. You get out into life and you get your ass kicked. Or the government kicks it. So even with the way they taught math is to get you almost in a subservient way of thinking.
I think almost everything is designed, everything that we've learned is in even time, even what we've learned about time and how time works. It's designed to make you subservient. And, I don't think time is at all the way that I don't think we comprehend it at all the way it really is. And math, everything, right? I mean, that's where you start wondering, is everything we learned throughout life, was it all a lie? And, well, a good portion of it was.
Yeah, absolutely. It was either a total lie or just a total twist on the truth.
Right.
Or they go and even look at news stories.
Yeah. Interestingly, though, the deception that has come down through thousands of years here has been, whether it's religion or government or doctors too, it's all designed to make you subservient.
Yeah, it's designed to keep you subservient. Yeah, and even the truth, it's all sprinkled with a little bit of lies. In today's, I call it Roman Protestantism, because that's exactly what it is. I mean, there really isn't much different between what the Protestants do and what the Catholics do. That whole system is taught to break you down right from the beginning. The first thing people are told if they go into a church, they haven't been to church before, or whatever, the first thing they're told is, oh, you're a sinner. You're a bad person. You need to get right with God. Yeah, you were born bad.
Right, the shame.
I'm really sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. I have a hard time that my Creator created a bunch of bad things. I don't think He created anything bad. I think it has its choice it has its choice to choose sides, doesn't it? And that's what people have to do. You tell me that a little child that was born somewhere in a tribe of Africa or whatever that never heard the story of the Creator, you telling me that he was born bad and he's going to go to hell? Explain that one to me.
No. That is part of the construct, that controls us. It is definitely part of the construct that controls us. It's that shaming, inadequate, making you feel inadequate, or you need to be ashamed of who you are for whatever reason. This goes along with the whole thing, doesn't it?
Right. And not only ashamed of who you are, but that you are in need of another power. You're in need of a daddy. You can't do it on your own. You don't have the strength within you. Well, I'm sorry. The Creator is in me. The Book of Thomas. The Book of Thomas was not allowed in the Bible. Why? I really think people need to go back and look at the books that weren't put into the Bible. Because the reason why is because through the Council of Nicaea and the church and the government, that they didn't want some of that information to get to the people. because the people might learn that they don't need a big daddy to take care of them. They don't need a big brother to take care of them. Because in Thomas, Yeshua was saying, he said, you want to know where God is? He said, split open a piece of wood. You'll find God. Look in that blade of grass. You'll find God. Look inside yourself. You'll find God. He's everything. He's omnipotent, omnipresent. That was a teaching they definitely didn't want the people to start thinking about. If people had no need for a big brother, had no need for a savior, or no need for somebody else or some other entity to take care of them, then where would that leave the state? That would leave them high and dry. Yeah, you look the past, especially the last 10 years, maybe not even that, maybe in just the past 5. Look at all the movies that have come out. Hey, look at all the superhero themes that have come out. I think the most recent was Wonder Woman. Everybody is looking for a superhero. You know, the people have strayed away from God. They've been beat down by the only entity that they think is over them, the state, and so they're looking for something. They need something to take care of them, and that's what they rely on. That's what this whole operation. That's what this whole captured operation relies on.
Right, and you know, with movies and TV. I see where there's an awful lot of predictive programming, but at the same time, there's an awful lot of just programming.
Yeah. Programming's the bottom line. It's all programming.
Right. Your predictive programming tells you what they're doing because they have to operate in plain open sight in a weird way. They can't do anything in secret. Even though they do things in secret. You might be able to help me explain that, Bryan, where they still have to be completely transparent in some ways. So you have things like predictive programming where they show what they're doing and what they're going to do. And then they can say that, well, they weren't holding back. But it's done in ways that we don't know that that's what's going on, or the average person doesn't know that that's what's going on. And then, there's the other side of it, which is the just programming your mind the way that they want it or need it so that they can continue the agenda. And we say they because we're talking about who?
The hierarchy that's enslaving you. That's the hierarchy enslaving you.
Right. The Freemasons is a good place to look, for answers as to who that is. But they're intermingled with many different groups, and we've gone down this hole too, this rabbit hole, and it's been a good one actually. In that they have multiple organizations. It's not just Freemasons. They've got the Skull and Bones and the Knights Templar and that list goes on. There's a whole bunch of them, but they are under one umbrella at the same time. So, but generally speaking, in the courts, I would say the Freemasons seem to be pretty historical there, aren't they? With judges and whatnot.
Oh, absolutely. I would recommend a series out there by a guy by the name of Walter Veith. His last name is Veith. And he really divulges a lot of information regarding the Masons. But the Masons are really just an offshoot from the Jesuits. Evil never changes its face, it just changes its name,
Right.
And so they're an offshoot from that. The Mormon Church is an offshoot from that.
Right.
There's just way too much evidence regarding that. And all of these things were constructs of the Vatican, and including Islam. If people want to know what Islam is, go back, research Muhammad, research the Vatican, and you'll find the Vatican used him to create Islam.
It's a fascinating study in itself.
May I?
Well, it was. Hold on, just a second. It wasn't very long ago, actually, that there was a bunch of guys from Islam that were there at the Vatican, or the Pope was visiting someplace where the Pope actually kissed their feet. Think about that.
Yeah, it's a problem. It's big. It's a problem.
All right, we had a may I there.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The vast majority of attorneys, do you think they're aware of this stuff? And like the police, do you think they're as made aware of the scam?
Not the majority of them, I don't think, but I definitely think that there are those in those positions, all of them, who do know.
No, they're all useful idiots, and they know just enough to do the job that the powers that be want them to do. I was sitting in court. I think I had mentioned this. I was sitting in court several years ago, before I knew any of this crap, and there's an attorney sitting next to me, and the case that was just before ours, they were wanting to switch guardianship from an attorney to a family member. And this family member was talking to the judicial administrator and saying, well, the ward, person, or the individual who had a guardianship over them, the ward works at such and such a place, and he goes and plays ball, and he goes swimming, and he likes bike rides here and there. And the judge stopped the woman and said, listen, neither I nor the court care about the individual. We only care about the person. And I looked around the court, and everybody's shaking their head, yeah. And I'm thinking, you guys don't even know what you're shaking your head to. You don't even know what you're agreeing to. You don't even hear what was just told you, that there is a difference between the individual and the person. The person is that authorizing signature. It's
the organization, that agency.
It's the money line. That's all they care about. It's the money line.
Yeah.
So you would think that
they don't care about the living being.
You would think, if the judges are made aware of it, and judges are nothing but attorneys, that the attorneys would have to know too.
Well, I think the majority of judges are attorneys that learn too much.
Well, not only that, but in that masonry thing, once they become a 33rd degree, they can't get out. We have to keep that in mind, I think.
Oh, yeah, their oath is that their guts be cut out of their body and put on their head for the vultures to eat. That's their oath, the Masons.
Don't they also do the
Masons?
They cut their throat, too.
Oh, there's the cutting of the throat. Yeah. Yeah, actually, some of those symbols, some of that symbolism was actually used in the Church of Mormon. They don't use it today, but it wasn't too long ago, like 20 years ago. They were using those symbols at the wedding ceremony.
I saw that post that you put up. It was on your site.
I'm still here, and I've been listening this entire time. I just wanted to say I found a Mason. I got one of their handbooks. It says Revised Duncan's Ritual Complete is the name of it, and it's the Freemason little paperback handbook. It has their handshakes in there. I haven't really sat down and read it. I just skimmed through it quickly. It's got everything in it. I almost wanted to get it out of my house. I feel like it carries a bad energy.
Right. I know.
Like I almost don't even want to have it in my home. I thought it was cool at first when I got it. I was like, oh my God, look at this. then I was like, I wanted to get it just to like see their inside secrets or whatever. And then I'm like, I don't know if I even want this in my house anymore.
Right. I hear you on that.
Yeah.
But it's good information, to know. I mean, I think, unfortunately, I've had to make myself very uncomfortable in learning things that I wouldn't have even considered learning before, because of that bad energy stuff. But because I know how important it is to comprehend what's going on around us, I have kept an open mind and learned things so that I can figure out ways to advance what we're doing here. So.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I want to say, too, is people have said to me, they're like, wow, with all this info, aren't you depressed? I mean, this is like, just negative, all negative stuff, And it's like, absolutely not. I mean, to me at first, you go through your stages. You're a little pissed off at first that you've been kind of fooled, tricked, and lied to your entire life. But then you come to a state where, it's like you can take a breath of relief, a sigh of relief, because now you know what's going on. And you look at everything so much differently, and it's so much easier when you comprehend what is happening. You know what? The people that have the fear in them now are the people that are going into that temple, into that courthouse. Those are the people that are scared and afraid. I'm not scared and afraid. I see exactly what's happening. To me, I have to laugh. It's almost a joke.
Well, isn't it say in Hosea in the Bible, my people perish for lack of knowledge?
Yeah, Hosea 6, I think it is. My people perish for lack of knowledge.
Right. So the knowledge, we were also programmed to be afraid of the knowledge. So, right. When actually we do need to comprehend that knowledge, in my opinion, to be able to help others get out of the hell that they're in. I can't even imagine how many young men went into Freemasonry, type of practices, whether it was through Mormonism or just straight Freemason or Skull and Bone, who knows. I can't even imagine what it would be like to have that belief that everything they're doing is for the good of all, honorable things, and then find themselves, getting to the top and learning at some point that it's all wrong and they can't go back. Right.
Yeah. And I totally recommend people to go and read stuff from like ex-CIA, read stuff from ex-Masons, read information from people who have given up their bar card, because that's where you're going to find answers at. A lot of this other stuff out there, you're just going to hear everybody talk about the problem, all right? Well, that's good. I think we all know about the problem for the most part. I think it's better to find out the secrets behind the problem. If you can look into the future, you were told that in the future you're going to get stabbed to death. Okay, well, that kind of might be interesting to know, but I think it's more interesting to know who's going to be holding the knife.
That's very good. And, not to mention that we've learned a lot about these brilliant systems and these clever, things that they've done, and actually are learning ways to put those things to use in the right way. And that's where the PMAs, I think, came from, right? The whole thing behind that?
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
That doesn't have to be a dishonorable thing. We're not looking to get people to a 33rd degree and then, tell them, you're caught. No getting out now. We're actually doing things because we want to help the planet and help our brothers and sisters and stop this madness, this insanity, sociopathic behavior.
Well, and that's one of the things I tell people too. Is that I hate when people look at a picture in a magazine of a murderer and they're like, "Oh God, look at him. He looks like a murderer." Or people see pictures of somebody, they're like, "Oh, he looks like a psycho. I bet he's this or I bet he's that." And people don't even realize how many times they are encountering this. And that's what this whole system really is. It's a psychopathic system. And a psychopath, that really in definition, is to remember that word path. It's somebody that gets away with crazy behavior and always gets away with it. It's a path. It's a lifestyle for them. You've got somebody that you kind of look up to for whatever reason. They dress nice, they're good looking, whatever. They have a good job, nice vehicle, whatever. And they come up to you and they tell you, they're like, "Wow, I really appreciate this about you," or I like the way you dress, or I admire this about you, or I admire that about you. And it gives you a really happy feeling inside because, oh my gosh, this person, whether it's somebody in authority or whatever, telling you this just makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Well, you know what? You just met a psychopath. Because that is exactly how a psychopath operates. They have to get in. They have to have you enamored to them in some way. Whether it's emotionally, financially, or, in the case of the state, out of fear.
And they know how to use all of those so well. Those are tools of the trade.
Absolutely. It's a tool of the trade. It's a tool of the path of life that they are on that has worked for them.
So we always have to be cautious and know that the enemy is going to be lurking. So you better have your stuff down. Yeah, go ahead.
How do I become a psychopath? That's levity.
Go to work for the government.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there's.
Yeah, and then you can be a licensed.
I think it's a requirement now.
Well, it is, though. It is a topic. I mean, how do they become? It's like when someone who becomes a serial killer or something, and then you see a picture of them when they were 2 years old or whatever, and you go, how did that person become the person they ended up being?
I don't know.
Well, very often it's through traumatic things that have happened in their life. They found that a lot of doctors, for instance, when they go back and look at their early childhood and interview people that knew them, that they were the kids who were always killing cats and mutilating birds and things like that, which is kind of interesting.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah. There's a story, and, I don't really mean to get off topic much here, but to me, I think this is a very, very serious importance. We saw here, what was it, a baseball game or whatever here a couple weeks ago where there was a congressman that was shot, and it's supposed to have been some, I don't know if they label it a terrorist situation or whatever. But that same day, they were supposed to be voting that afternoon or whatever. They were supposed to be voting regarding pedophiles. And there's more and more of this information getting leaked out right now. And people, keep an eye on your kids. Good Lord. Watch the children right now. And watch what's happening within DCF and the things that are going on there. It needs to be brought to an end. The whole DCF process needs to be totally retooled because there is so much trafficking going on right now. People have no idea. I was reading a bunch of information a couple weeks ago regarding a lot of this that was going back right into the Reagan administration, and how many people in that administration were involved in pedophilia. And it's absolutely horrible. And you talk about how people become this way or whatever. There's a story of this boy. He was 12 years old, and he had a paper route. And his father always accompanied him on the paper route. Well, one day, his father didn't accompany him. And his father and mother woke up that morning, and they said, oh, where's Johnny at? And they ran down to where the kids went on. They all picked up the papers for their delivery route. And his little wagon was there with the dog. And all the papers still sitting in it. And the kid was gone. They went to the police. The police didn't come to their house until like 2 or 3 hours later to talk to them about it. And the police attitude was, he's just a runaway. And they're like, no. The mother had already interviewed all the kids that was there, including an adult who was an attorney, and they all said, yeah, there was a strange dude, da-da-da. And the one kid, little kid, he was 16 actually, all but witnessed this other child being abducted. And this child was sold into sex trafficking. And thousands upon thousands, tens, maybe hundreds of thousands was made off in this child. And there's so many stories regarding this situation where people who were witnesses were being killed off. All right. And the mother did get a chance to talk to her son like 20 years later. He came to the home and visited for like 2 hours because he had been able to escape this pedophile ring at one point. But they had twisted his mind so much that he was going to be in trouble for what he had done, and the police were after him, da-da-da, that he lived in a constant state of fear. And it's this constant state of fear that we want everybody to overcome. You've got to overcome the fear. Otherwise, it keeps you trapped. Because that's the only power that they have over people.
As far as I know, he's never been, he was living on the reservations and kind of traveling, living out of tents and, really a mess is the last thing I heard about.
Johnny Gosh.
Right.
Yeah, it was Johnny Gosh.
May I?
And, yes.
Have you ever heard of Kathy O'Brien? I don't want to get into but
yes.
Kind of sounds familiar.
She has a book called Transformation of America, and she was presidential model. But if you haven't ever heard of it, but you could Google her, Kathy O'Brien.
Illuminati MK Ultra mind control victim?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've heard her.
Yeah, child traffic. She went through the whole gamut.
Well, and that's a perfect example of what all these powers up at the top right now, how far this evil has gotten. Everybody's like, oh, we need to do this or vote in the right president or Trump will do this or Trump will do that. Well, you know what? I'm sorry, but there's nothing that is going to change what is in place right now. Other than if there's a return of the Lord and Savior. But until that time, the best thing we can do is separate ourselves from
it. May I say something?
Please, go ahead.
Sure.
This might be a little bit off topic, but kind of on topic of what you were saying. You were saying pay attention to what DCF is what's happening there, and just basically pay attention to everything in all areas. So one thing that I've noticed is the how we're training foreign military people. Our men and women who have families born and raised who live in the United States, our men and women are all over the country fighting, as we know, not for our freedoms, for money and oil and greed and all that, and they think they're doing well. Like I feel bad for the men and women who join thinking they're fighting for us, but they're really not. But that's not what I meant. So I've noticed that our men and women are all across the country not here to protect us, and yet we're training military foreigners, and they're bringing foreigners in and training them as our own military, and this is giving me red flags of concern because somewhere early in this phone meeting, something was mentioned talking about how dedicated foreigners were, like how they fight for their country, for their beliefs, and how they're willing to die for them. And so if our foreigners that come over here who are hired to fight to protect us are not going to fight and for us and really protect us like our fathers, our uncles, our brothers, our cousins, our sisters, our aunts, our uncles, our own. And I think that's purposely being designed that way. Does anybody else see this happening or have a concern about that, or am I just seeing something that
total concerns? You're talking about United Nations things now, which definitely, that's New World Order stuff, and there's a lot of things going on right now, and it's hard to filter through all of the material, but I did see an interview or a testimony from a woman who worked for the immigration places in sanctuary cities, and she told that they were bringing in young Muslims, and I've heard this from multiple sources, young Muslim men between ages of 17 and 24. 80% of the ones that are being brought over by cover of night, and they're bringing in their own army to do battle from the inside. And so there's great concern. And this is with the cover of the United Nations as well. So there's great concerns about what's going on in our world right now. And that's all the more reason why we need as many people to comprehend what is going on as we can get. Because if you don't know how to stand up for yourself, for one, then you're just doomed. And, number two, we have all these things that are going on, and they're being brought in for certain reasons to harm us. And it's up to us to, do what we have to balance that out. And I say that from a standpoint of a lot of these young men. We've got to be able to reach as many of them as possible and get them out of that fighting mode. So we have to come from a place of love.
Yes. And when that whole North Dakota pipeline thing was happening, and the military men that were out there, one thing, I don't know if this is why or what, but I was trying so desperately to reach the organizers of that because I had read there was a situation in Ukraine where people were uprising and standing up for their rights, and it was this huge thing happening, and it was weeks and weeks of violence from military against old ladies and women, just people, innocent people just getting hurt and everything. It was a lot of violence. And one thing that they did, one day they organized it and everybody went, I don't know if you want to call it a rally, but they went to downtown Ukraine, a whole group of people, and they were armed with mirrors. That's what they had with them, was mirrors. And they stood in front of all the military men and they held up mirrors. And they were just women and children and just people. just regular people, and then you have the military men with their gear, and they hold those plastic things. It's almost like a big board, and it's like they can hold it up to like block something if it's coming flying out of the sky at them. You know what I mean? Kind of like a tambourine, like they hold in their hand. You know, those big things, plastic things, whatever. And so they're fully equipped in military suits, and then you have these little old ladies in their little knitted hats and sweaters, and the children and the women, you know, and they're just standing there in front of these men with mirrors. And do you know that it actually changed what happened? It changed. It was like something profound happened. And so I kept contacting people from that North Dakota thing, and I was like, and I was sharing the story with them, and and then I saw a picture. It was only one. I didn't see like a huge, you know, thing of it, but then someone was posting, there was a young girl, she was like 9 or something, and she had a mirror, and they were like, went on to, like, they told the story how they were standing in front of them and doing this, and I'm like, wow, are they doing that because someone finally got my message? I don't know. But, and it was, you know, for a very brief moment, because, you know, a lot of things happened down there that were not good, but for a brief moment, it did make a difference. And that is where, you know, definitely coming from a spirit of love, if we can just reach the women who are married, or the men who have women who are in the service, if we can reach the families of the men and women in the service and touch their heart, to reach out to their husbands so they can, like, explain to them really what's going on, and just, like you said, come from the standpoint of love. I think that's exactly where we need to be.
It's going to take a lot of love to heal all of us. You know, we're all wounded. And those guys are wounded too.
You know, everybody.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, people need to know the standpoint of what's happening and where all of this is really coming from. The situation with the pipeline, this is a situation that should have started being resolved a few years ago. And you look at the timing of it when it really erupted, and it was a time when, you know, we had gone from gas prices that were, you know, $4 or more in different places, and it really dropped down to half of that. It really come way down. And now all of a sudden, you know, you see these protests. And you go behind a lot of these tree hugger organizations and stuff like that, and it's like, gosh, you know, they have to be funded from somewhere, so you look at where they're getting their funding from. And when you follow the whole, you know, rat line of where their money comes from, you find out that, for instance, in oil situations, that it's actually coming from the big oil companies that's providing the funding to these organizations. And this is all being done just to prevent more oil from being either pumped in or exploration being done or things like that. Because as quantity of oil would go up, prices would come down. And there's more expense with pumping more oil. So why not pump less oil and keep the prices inflated, which is what they want.
Right,
and that's
exactly.
where all this money is coming from. It's coming right from the source that actually we are funding every time we fill up our car. It's a horrible situation.
Mhm. And once again, it was on the indigenous people, and I feel that they just wanted to make an example that it was a huge movement, and it had awakened, I think, so many people who maybe have been asleep or on the brink or borderline of being awakened, and I feel it was propaganda, really, and
a test situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be another thing there too. They like doing that kind of stuff to see what the response would be and so forth. And you can see that many people sign on to it, and you know, so it's a tough situation. It really is. I wish that I could say that, you know, there's an outside savior that's going to come and save us all, but I don't see I see where we have to do it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
With divine
absolutely, and that's
intervention.
really what that's really what this call is all about. Exiting Babylon, and it's that the masses aren't going to do it. Everything really starts at a ground roots level, and it's a matter of each of us learning how to get the status corrected. And I mean that's a popular term that's really used as status correction, which isn't really accurate because everybody has the correct status. That's what people don't realize. You've got the correct status already. You just need to declare it. You just need to start operating in that status. Start using that. And then teach other people how to do the same thing.
I think for a lot of us, we've been injured, before we comprehended that. So, that sent me personally on a mission to file documents or record documents and do things in a certain way to correct my status, so to speak, because it had not been, my rights had not been adhered to, and for some reason when I spoke, I wasn't heard, so that's where the "you're dead" came in, and sent me on this mission to comprehend how we are viewed, and we are viewed as dead, enemies of the state, incompetent, and then there's a plethora of other things too. So I think that's how a lot of us got in, of what do we have to do to correct our status or remove the presumptions on paper. These documents seem to be what they comprehend.
You had just mentioned a little bit ago that we need to get rid of the fear. I completely agree. And that's one thing that I struggle with is there's, and someone else had mentioned, someone said to them, well, aren't you depressed? Don't you get depressed? And, I go through these stages of depression because of it. And then I go through stages of bliss where I'm completely at peace with God, feeling blessed to have the knowledge, to have the overhead and everything in my life and the family and friends and whatever, the love that I do have. And when I walk down the street, there's not helicopters and bombs outside. So I can go either direction very quickly. And so it's something that I try to balance. And but there's always this fear in the back of my head because I have so much knowledge, and I question. This is the biggest question, and I wanted to ask you guys if you feel the same. Is okay. Where do you see? What do you see happening? Do you see? Because I keep hearing this phrase, global reset. And crash. Like when it crashes, there's going to be a global reset. Are you ready? And what does that mean to you? And what do you envision? Like, do you have a picture in your head when you hear that phrase? Because when I hear those words, I envision the chaos that we see in other countries, with military in the streets and fires and buildings being destroyed and blood and just war. And I'm like, is that going to happen over here? I mean, the only thing the worst that we've ever seen was 9/11. And, so I'm like, oh my God, are all the cities, is there going to be like a shortage of food and like people aren't going to have electricity? Like, what is actually happening? Like, is something crazy going to happen? Like, I know there's people that are called, I don't know what they're called, but they stockpile and like prepare and have like AK-47s, like machine guns and like canned goods and like all kinds of stuff. Like, where is your fear level at? I mean, how do you keep that under control? Or am I?
For me, it's just a matter of. No, for me, it's just a matter of realizing it's going to occur at some point. I mean, you look back, the only thing we know about the future is what's happened in the past. And you look at what's happened in the past. And this is a cycle that every Roman society goes through. And for a few years, things go good. It gets really good. Then they go back into a stage of slavery. And it's like a 7-step cycle. And we are right at like between stages 6 and 7 right now in America. And, you know, the economists and everybody are all saying, listen, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, you know. And for a lot of people say it's going to be in the next several years here, and it would not surprise me. So the only thing people can do is really be confident that they've prepared themselves and their family to be able to weather the storm. We can't look to anybody else to take care of us. Only we can be responsible for ourselves.
Right. And so my question is, we see the violence, we see how police have become military, military training. They're not the police officers that we've grown up to know. The force that they use. So even with all this status correction and paperwork and whatever, I mean, really, is there any way to really be prepared? I mean, how possibly, when I think of being prepared, I think, okay, I need a garden, I need to have solar electricity, I need to have guns to protect myself in case someone wants to rob me because I have food and they don't. Like, this is where my mind goes, and then I have to shut it off and say, no, and okay, so when I shut it off, I'm like, am I putting my head in the sand? Or am I being ridiculous?
Okay, if I might be able to, add to what you're saying. First of all, recognize the fear thing, okay, because that is the first thing that hits us is, oh my God, is everything just going to fall apart? Everybody's going to go crazy, right? People are going to be killing each other. And
exactly.
Right. You go through that whole mental thing, and that's the fear thing, which works for them. They want you to feel that, So does that mean, oh, everything's fine? Do you take that attitude? No. You can't do that either. You have to recognize where we are, and actually this construct, in order for a new one to come, and I hope it's in the right way. I'm very hopeful. Many people have been working on it for a long time to keep it from going bad. But in order for a new thing to come and take place, the old thing has to pass away. And unfortunately, for the discomfort of many people, that means that the financial system probably has to come completely down.
Right.
The federal is such an intricate part of our problem here.
Right.
Yeah, you can almost say it's the root. But it has to come down in order for the new one to come back up, or for the new one to come up. And now I'm pushing for more of a natural law kind of atmosphere.
Like bartering type thing, or back to gold and silver, or...
if we have to go back to gold and silver to get there, that's better. But no, the whole comprehension of human energy and how it works, and how it's the human energy that has always been the real wealth.
Right.
It's never been gold and silver. The currency was created from the human energy. Human energy was turned into currency.
Right.
And, stolen from us. That's what has been being stolen for so many years, and making some very wealthy.
Right.
Right. But you can't get to that new system until people learn to do without the current system, which is a fiat system. fiat currency. Mm-hmm. And so that's just an example of the constructs that have to come down in order for new ones to come up. And there's a lot of people doing a wonderful job of bringing up new ways, technological ways, of being able to live our lives without being in constant hurt and want, or need.
Right.
I mean, you can make 3D houses from a 3D printer in 24 hours. It's not. Things have changed.
Right.
You can draw water from the air. You can. People don't have to be going without.
Right.
But as that almighty dollar is playing such a huge role in the hearts and minds of so many, and why wouldn't it? We were all raised to think that way. They're raising kids that way too. Still, it's done through video games. It's done in many different ways to, get them focused on the almighty dollar. And as long as they think that is where the value is, then we're not going to be right, because that is not where the value is. And it's not in gold and silver either.
Right. You're right. Yeah.
So personally, I just like to go to, something that works for, human energy without any of the control mechanisms. Yes, that's what I would like.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to say too, yeah, pretty much. I want to say too, there's a lot of people that are out there that are like, oh, okay, so you follow this paperwork, that paperwork, and I've seen some effects of what I've done, which is great. I mean, I think the best effect we can see is what's not done to us. You know what I mean? That's the best proof of anything. Nobody's going to come knock on your door and put a little shiny badge or put a medal on you or anything like that. You know what I mean? But so many people are like, okay, well, who cares what you have filed and what you've given notice to or whatever, because you can be eliminated just as easy as a guy that hasn't filed anything. Well,
exactly.
my only answer to that at the end of the day is, you know what? We were ordered to get out of her in reference to Babylon and the Roman system. We were ordered to get out of her. And if I have taken my best efforts to get out of her, then I have done what was ordered of me. And that's all I'm concerned about.
Right.
That's all I care about.
Yeah.
Because heaven and earth will pass away. Heaven and earth will pass away. Whatever happens here is of not my concern. It's the life after here. That's where my concern lies. That's where the treasures really lie at.
I so concur. It's worth every minute of discomfort in this world to know that we're doing the right thing and we're doing what we can to bring remedy to all.
And not just remedy, but cure. I mean, with remedy, you're looking at admiralty law. You're looking at maritime law, actually. And that is, it goes in the order of salvage, remedy, and cure. Everybody's stuck on remedy. I want cure. I'm just going to cure it. How about that? That's the ultimate remedy.
Oh, I like the word cure. How about restore?
Yeah. Cure. To be made whole. To be made whole. Yeah.
To be made whole. I like that one too. Yeah. And that is what the law says.
Mm-hmm.
Natural law can be overturned. I mean, there are laws that are universal that all have to adhere to. So sometimes I keep that in my heart. I remember that the way law works is that it does bring about what is supposed to be. And so having the peace that we're doing the right thing, and we know we're doing the right thing, and we can stand in confidence with that, that we're doing whatever it is that we have to, and for many of us at great discomfort, to help things come about in the right way. And our intentions are good. We are coming from a place of love. I won't say that I don't have moments in my life where I feel some hate, because I have bad days.
Hate's natural. Hate's natural. Everybody thinks that, that's unchristian or that's not spiritual to have hate. Well, no. Yeshua said, what was the statement? That basically to hate but to sin not. Be angry. He said, be angry but sin not. Well, everybody's like, well, wait a minute. How can you be angry and not sin? Well, there's different kinds of love. There's different kinds of fear. There's different kinds of anger. And that anger is an anger towards man going and using the ways of the devil, but doing it in the name of good, doing it in the name of God or of Yahuwah. That's where you get angry. That was his anger. That was his anger at the money changers in the temple, because they're in there practicing the ways of man in the temple of Yahuwah. And that's where our anger is at. Our anger is that we've got a Roman system right now that is doing everything in the name of the benefit of society. Unfortunately, the only benefit's going to the legal society, the juristic society. It's not going to the society of Yahuwah or Yeshua.
Right.
Well, guys, we're just after midnight. What do we think?
It was a great.
It's been really good. Really enjoyable. I have so enjoyed you so much, Bryan. Thank you for coming on and sharing so much.
No, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, and it's a duty we have to our fellow man. If we find something that's working, we got to go show people, don't we?
Absolutely.
I agree.
We learn by sharing together, and tonight was kind of a laid-back night in a lot of ways. I thought it just flowed really well. So, yeah, I appreciate all you guys coming onto the call and hanging for so long. And if anyone wants to get in touch with Bryan, I can offer up my email address, and you're more than welcome to email me for his contact information, unless you wanted to give something out, Bryan. I'm happy to do that for you, though.
No, that's fine. Or, I can always be found at Tactical Sovereignty on Facebook, too. So.
Oh, great. That's right.
And what is your name? I know Bryan, but what is your name?
Marshall Swilly, Colorado.
Oh, okay. Thanks. I'm Catherine Mancarella.
Hi, Catherine.
Hi.
And you're where?
I'm in Connecticut.
Oh, wow, I heard that Connecticut was shutting down financially or something like that. I didn't, do a deep dive on it or anything, but I heard that Connecticut and Illinois and 4 states over there, they were having government shutdowns, and the entire states are shutting down.
Wow, I didn't hear that. I don't know.
Yeah, you might want to check that out. That's it's on an economy kind of thing going on, which I'm trying to keep an eye on, and I've got my nose in everything, all right? I try and keep an eye on everything.
Right. I will definitely look into it, though.
But
thank you so much. Yeah.
Very welcome.
All right,
well,
it was a great pleasure.
It has been a really good call, and once again, Bryan, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your audience with us too. That was really nice.
No, that's cool, and a chance for other people to get to know each other. So,
for sure, and there's more that people want to talk to you about too. Your name keeps coming up. Okay, just to let you know.
Well, if anybody wants to like compile a list of things or something, we could do this again.
I'll be reaching out to you soon. Okay, let's let everybody come back together after the holiday and and see where all we are, because we're talking about some things that have really been very good. We have the Thursday night call, which is the National Assembly, and that call is hosted oftentimes by Chief Justice Michael Hamilton, and then Chief Justice Mickey is also usually on the call. We've got Greg Johnson, who is very faithful and has been very quiet tonight, but I think he's been on the call. Am I right? Well, maybe not, because he's just not usually that quiet. But anyway, we've got great people that are joining together on every night of the week, really. Tuesday is the Marshals Call, Continental Marshals, and Wednesday is We the People, and that's starts with the Colorado and goes into a national call as well, and it's meant for the all the justices, marshals, and grand jury members. And Thursday is a national assembly call for everyone. These calls are actually for everyone, though, anyway. So Bryan Parker has a regular call on Sunday nights, Tactical Sovereignty on TalkShoe. Is that what it's titled under, Bryan?
Yeah, Tactical Sovereignty on TalkShoe. It's the Matrix discussion group. DW came up with that name, and I have a hard time kind of spitting it out sometimes.
It's a good one, though, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's very fitting.
Matrix. That is a hard one to say, isn't it? I can read it a lot better than say it.
Yeah. It looks good on paper.
Right. So, yeah, it's gotten really late. Thank you again. And listen, everybody, if you want to hang on the line, I don't know how that works. If once, certain people hang up, if the call goes offline or what happens.